jobs. They talk about unemployment soaring, joblessness. That's a big story on the front page of the Standard. But they also make mention of the deaths, massive losses as floods cause havoc, still on the front page with the image there at the bottom. It is still the biggest discussion this morning. Matters business. That
beats development, recurrent spend combined. A whole graph of development spending. That's a business daily. City in the floods. Oh, yes. So they had 10.
And I like what they've done with this. You know, every day we see sort of landscape. They've put a portrait for the main headline today on the People Daily. City in the floods, a very devastating image there. And it's very devastating seeing a small baby being saved from that. You can see a small baby still in diapers, being carried shoulder high. And those are Kenya Red Cross people trying to save some people, especially from Mathare and areas where they were totally marooned. Those are the very interesting images on the front page of the People Daily.
From People Daily to the Star. And well, as much as they have that, the story on the floods, they say 12 dead as nature unleashes its fury and incompetence haunts Kenyans. Though another story, also focused in a number of dailies, is the arrest of former Treasury CS Yatani. It's in the 8.2 billion cash shillings EACC corruption probe.
Oh, yes. That's a Star. And across the border in Uganda, and the Daily Monitor nowadays has very interesting headlines. And you wonder if it's a blog or a tabloid. Parents sue school for expelling pregnant girl. This is not the kind of story you'd see on the front page in any Kenyan daily. But yes, it's there on the front page of the main paper, Daily Monitor in Kampala, Uganda. They talk of a parent who says his daughter in primary 4 was expelled after being found pregnant. Primary 4, pregnant. Wow. During a mandatory testing exercise at a learning institution, which has gone to the High Court claiming infringement of the girl's privacy, among others. The parent is also seeking general damages to be awarded to him and the daughter. Also matters school at the bottom there of the front page of the Daily Monitor. Government probe reveals causes of school fires. And yes, quite a number of schools. And this is a phenomenon that we've experienced in Kenya before. It's happening in Uganda. I think everything that happens in Kenya also happens in Uganda.
Still in Uganda, holiday coaching schools to lose licenses, still in matters education.
In Kenya, we've banned holiday tuition. Yeah. They've been told the same in Uganda. The experts are warning against academic overload. It is something as a Kenyan learner, you know, you've experienced.
Oh, yes.
So in Uganda, they are having the same feeling too.
Muhozi is celebrating his...
Oh, yeah, still there, Muhozi.
Yeah.
He turned 50.
50?
Where did he get 50 years?
He doesn't look like 50.
He doesn't.
I mean, you're 50 and you don't look like 50.
No, me, I'm actually 62.
Oh.
Yeah. Across the border into Tanzania.
Kwenye gazeti la Mwananchi, haki za binadamu zilivyovunjwa zaidi. Zungumzia masuala ya ukatili, rushwa, pia haki ya kuishi. Hiyo ni taarifa, ripoti ya LHRC.
And you know, now these were the kind of headlines you used to see in Kenya in back in the 90s and early 2000s. It means we've really gone, and this is not something you can remember clearly. You're only 12, and so you've actually seen the better side after the new constitution. Actually, have you ever experienced the old constitution, life under the old constitution? No, you haven't.
As a Gen Z, I'll
never. I'll tell you more about what happened. On the Citizen.
How 1.88 trillion Tanzanian cash or Tanzanian shillings energy budget will be expended.
Yes, Matters Energy making it to the front page of the Citizen in Tanzania. You still have one more for Rwanda.
Should be the first one, Kabisa.
Or the very last one.
Or the very...
All right, it's there on the screen. Is Rwanda's Innovation Fund relevant to local startups?
Oh, yes. But then the key story here is the one that has pictured the Auditor General. His name is Alexis Kamuhire. And they say unlawful spending down by 60%. So get this, the Auditor General filed a whole report that had the fiscal report of 2022 as well as 2023. And it showed that the unlawful spending by the government was cut down by double. Yes. So right now, most of the public entities have, clean kind of audits.
Would you imagine that happening in Kenya? a clean audit for any organization in Kenya.
Yes.
Auditor General akuja asema, county government, clean audit.
Good, yes.
Central government, clean audit. Can only happen in Rwanda, I tell you. Those are the dailies this morning. Let's take a look at the traffic now and a quick look at our roads. Today, we're hoping for much better and yes, major tributaries into town. Umeweka wapi town sasa? Hii town umepoteza. And yes, this is the town. Yes, and you see, one of the major roads, and you remember yesterday we had a bit of trouble on Thika Highway, at Githurai and other areas. And yes, there's still some trouble, but I'm not sure if it's related to flooding. I know there was some water that must have been sorted out by now. But there's bits and pieces of slowdowns, especially around TRM, heading towards town. Another slowdown just before you get to that Allsops interchange into Outer Ring Road. Another one at KSh8 University. Bits of yellow, not really red, so nothing to worry about. Yeah. It is exactly what's happening at Pangani as well. Bit of yellow, but that one is to be expected at this time of day. After that, it's smooth all the way into town, either you're using Murang'a Road or Wangari Maathai Road. Kiambu Road, nothing to report. Everything is Nyue, past the bypass, all the way past Karura Forest, DCI headquarters, into the Pangani interchange. So that direction is so far so good. Na tumeenda hadi Nakuru sasa. Let's come back to Nairobi. Yes. Back to Nairobi, and let's take a look at the other major tributary into town, and this is Waiyaki, all the way from Rungiri, past Githurai, Kangemi, all the way past ABC, and it's smooth. So far, so good into town, nothing much to worry about. I think the only bit is on Uhuru Highway once you get into town, just before the Nyayo House roundabout. And I think that's because of the roundabout itself. So far, if you're coming from Waiyaki, the road is smooth. Let's take a look at Ngong Road. As far back as Karen, nothing to report past the interchange with the Southern Bypass, all the way past Junction Mall, past the Prestige Plaza. I saw a bit of red here. Yes, a bit of red around Prestige Plaza. There are some lights there, but I don't think it's anything to worry about because the red is on both ways of the highway. Past that, heading towards the City Mortuary roundabout, it is smooth all the way. So if you're using Ngong Road, you're good to go. So is Mbagathi Way, green all the way, both directions. Nothing much to worry about. Let's check out Langata Road. On Langata Road, as far back as Galleria Mall, everything is okay. So far, so good. Past the Southern Bypass, interchange, all the way to the Timor roundabout and further down to the Nyayo Stadium. Nothing to worry about. It's green even around Nyayo Stadium, which is a bit interesting at this time of day. It's usually a bit heavy. Let's take a look at Mombasa Road.
We could probably extend all the way to the river, just taking a look at, because yesterday we did see the junction just after EPZ getting into Kitengela. It was quite murky.
And we've gone as far back as Small World Country Club, which is quite far. But yes, you can see bits and pieces of yellow, nothing red so far, so it's not as bad. So anyone coming from Mombasa Road as far as from Machakos, you can still drive to town. There's no serious indication of any problem so far, past Mlolongo, past Cabanas, Imara Daima, Next Gen Mall, all the way Capital Center into town. It is okay. So far, so good. Finally, let's take a look at Jogoo Road. And Jogoo Road is somewhere here. Yes. Jogoo Road from Donholm interchange coming towards town. Today it's much better. Yes, bits and pieces of green, a bit of red at Makadara, which is, I think we're getting used to that every morning. Opposite the Makadara local, it's a bit of red there. And so, okay, so imeenda wapi maneno tena? Imeenda Isli. Yes. So beyond that, past Mbotela, all the way to the City Stadium roundabout, a bit of a snarl up just before the City Stadium. But after that, into town, it's okay. So far, so good as at, what time is it? 13 minutes past 6. So this could change later, but for now, yes, you can get into town very comfortably.
Oh, yes. Let's take a look at the weather. And so now, actually, if you actually did know, now the Kenya Meteorological Department has a WhatsApp channel, and just, telling you what you really need to know. So what I'm going to do is just open the Kenya Met Department, so you can go to its Twitter page or the X page, and they've posted it here. you can just open that and open it. There you have it. So it shows you the different kinds of, what to follow. So we can just follow that and open it to see what you'd need to know on that. So they say, so this is for Thursday as well as Friday for this week. For different counties, as well as today, I think this should be, this is actually the entire country. Can have that there. So just, our main focus would really be between, let's say, the 50 to all the way to 100 millimeters, and see how this will be. Parts of the central Meru, as well as Nyandarua, Nyeri, Buranga, Kiambu, Machakos, bits of Machakos there.
And Nairobi around here.
Yes, Nairobi. Parts of Kajiado as well will be getting temperatures, the millimeters as high as 50 plus. That is for today. Parts of Narok as well, and Laikipia pale juu kidogo, Saburu, as well as some bits of Elgeyo Marakwet. This is how the rainfall will be looking like. The meteorological department really telling you chances of it really raining for today is quite high. Mombasa as well. Okay, Mombasa not really as much. Mombasa will be getting millimeters as between 10 to 15 there, and between 5 to 20 thereabout. So light showers expected in Mombasa. In Lamu County, and just extending all the way, and the boundary will be getting between 50 all the way to 100 millimeters thereabout. That is for today. Majority, well, it seems as if, when we started in the week, the weather, rather even the rainfall was spread out, and just about a third or even 2/3 of the country had quite the rainfall. Today, this is how it looks like. Not much actually of rainfall. A huge percentage, let's say 2/3 of it, will be getting light showers of about 15 millimeters of the same. That is for today, as of from today 9 a.m. all the way to tomorrow 9 a.m.
24 hours.
24 hours of today. Right. Let's take a look at the diary and tell you what to expect on today. So first off, on our news diary, President William Ruto will be gracing the official opening of Bunge Towers. And according to a statement by the National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula, the occupation of the 28-story building will take place in 2 phases. That's the 11th of April, which has already begun, and the next phase will commence on the 1st of July this year. Stick around right here at TV47. We'll be giving you more details on this. On to the next page, and Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Investment, Trade and Industry, that is Rebecca Miano, is set to continue with bilateral engagements with the U.S. Secretary of Commerce, that is Gina Raimondo. Today, this is something that began yesterday. We'll be following up on that just to see how the Kenya-U.S. bilateral commercial talks will continue. On to the next page, we get into the courts now. And former Nairobi Governor Evans Kidero is expected to appear before the Milimani Anti-Corruption Court today for the mention of a suit for the recovery of 58 million cash shillings embezzled from the city-county government during his tenure, basically. So we'll be telling you how that will be going on. And speaking of matters corruption, on to the next page. Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission Chair David Oginde, as well as the CEO of ESCC, Twali Mbarak, will lead a workshop forum for media practitioners today. And the forum will be graced by the former Chief Justice David Maraga, as well as Media Council of Kenya CEO David Omoyo. Just taking a look at the role of the media when it comes to fighting corruption. That, among others, right here in our subsequent bulletins, what to expect for today. We get into the newspaper review right now.
Yes, we start off with the Daily Nation. Floods nightmare. It is the biggest discussion, the biggest talking point this week, coming on the back of what we saw yesterday, the number of videos and photos doing rounds online. And the Daily Nation talks about nature's fury. Deluge has also caused businesses to suffer losses and disrupted road and rail transport. And an image there of rescue teams evacuating residents from their submerged homes at Graceland Estate in Athi River. This is actually one of those nice-looking residential estates in Athi River. And those are the images coming from there. And you can see a young girl being carried shoulder high just to try and evacuate her from her home, which has been marooned by floods. And as far as the number of deaths are concerned, they talk about a death toll of 10 plus people who have lost their lives in the last 3 days following the heavy rains in Nairobi and its surroundings. Remember, the rains have affected at least 23 counties across the country, and there could be more reports of deaths or casualties. And as far as destruction is concerned, the raging waters have swept away bridges and destroyed people's homes and property while marooning entire estates. President Ruto yesterday directed formation of a multi-agency team as Azimio chief once floods declared a national disaster. Now, the Daily Nation has dedicated pages 2, 3, 4, and 5 to the coverage of this. So there are more photos of the flood situation on the pages 2, 3, 4, and 5. And one of those interesting photos is where we saw one of those excavators trying to take water from one side of the road and pour it on the other, and one wonders what exactly they were doing. Well, that's a big talking point there on the front page of the Daily Nation. Other highlights: Somalia Prime Minister says they've lifted barriers to foreign investment. Elsewhere, matters health, counties start sacking doctors. And on the fertilizer scandal, farm questions hasty compensation plan. The only other story on the front page is Yatani questioned over loss of 8.2 billion shillings. The former Cabinet Secretary for Treasury also served as governor for Marsabit at some point. On the back page of the Daily Nation, doctors remain defiant as counties start firing them. The doctor strike enters the 43rd day today, and yes, some, including the Governor for Trans Nzoia, George Natembeya, indicated that he could start hiring doctors from neighboring Uganda.
Yeah.
And yes, a Ruto commitment to taming wage bill to be tested as CAS's law heads to him for signing. It's been passed by Parliament. And yesterday or the day before, the SRC gave its own remuneration for the CASs. Now, this will be heading to the president. He's been talking about tough times. Let's see if at all he's going to sign it.
And living within our means.
Oh, yes, living within our means.
Oh, yes.
That's the Daily Nation today.
Even as we speak about living within our means, the Standard asks two very important questions. Jobs, what jobs? And they talk about soaring joblessness. They say Kenya is witnessing increasing levels of unemployment coupled with mass layoffs by distressed firms and reduced earnings for those retaining jobs, according to a new report, which blames high taxation, soaring interest rates, unpredictable policies, and government's failure to settle bills owed by the suppliers. As on pages 2 and 3, they indicate some numbers that you can take a look at them. The Kenya's total employment growth rate in 2022 down by 5.3% in 2021. In the informal sector, employment growth rate in 2022 down from a high of 5.9% from the previous year, and 35%, that is the percentage of unemployed Kenyans, according to the government data. And the pending bills owed to the private sector by the government, hurting liquidity and dampening jobs, about 794 billion Kenyan shillings. On to a story that all the papers today are focusing on: deaths, massive losses as floods cause havoc. On the bottom scroll, and they have a picture there of residents in Mathare in Nairobi, just salvaging the belongings after a night of flooding caused by the heavy rains. This paper has quite a number of other highlights. You can take a look at on the bottom, the right. MPs ignore proposals of Raila Ruto talks team. The Say House team has defied the decision of the National Dialogue Committee to pass IEBC Bill 2024 without any alterations, instead proposing key changes in the electoral legislation and saying we will amend as is. On the left, masuala ya elimu, CBC to have only one exam at grade 12. There is a NEC clarifying that grade 3, 6 and 9 will only assess learners' progress and achievement in the previous grades. Meanwhile, Attorney General has a last laugh in teeth with the Public Service Commission. They say the AG gets a say in appointment of the State Council following amendment of the Office of Attorney General Act to limit the PSC towers. More highlights are on the very top strip. First off, the first Japanese used car auction opens its doors. And the court says no to sugar imports. Into real estate, pull-out auctioneers go digital to slash costs. And a story that Fred would really want
Just go straight to the back page. I think it will be much faster and better. They talk about 5-star Arsenal.
Oh yes, 5-star Arsenal open up Premier League lead.
Oh yes, as Liverpool falter and going down 2-0 to Everton.
Ateta ameacha kuteta.
Hakuna kuteta sasa bana. Ni nini tena? So yes, tuendelee maswala gazeti la Taifa Leo, and because of time we need to rush a bit. Ni kubaya, habari kuu pale kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, mvua kubwa yaua zaidi ya watu 10 na kuzua mateso tele katika maeneo mengi hasa Nairobi. Na kuna picha pale kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, picha za kutatanisha, lori pamoja na matatu zimeanguka kwenye mto pale uliofurika. Ndio habari kuu zaidi. Ndio kuna Arsenal pale juu, lakini sababu ya muda sitaguzia sana. Let's check out the Business Daily. Debt, development, recurrent spend combined. That's a big headline as far as business is concerned today. Servicing of debt to costs consume 1.24 trillion shillings in 9 months. And full year debt expenditure expected to hit 1.86 trillion. Yes, the country continues to grapple with the rising public debt. Elsewhere, court allows KCB to auction 100 Great Wall apartments. Some 100 homeowners at Great Wall Gardens in Athi River risk losing their units after the developer failed to convince the Court of Appeal to temporarily stop KCB from auctioning the houses to recover a loan of 1.9 billion shillings. That's as far as business is concerned. Let's take a look at the other one.
From Bidi to People Daily City, the floods, they say 6 people dead, thousands marooned in their houses, and roads impassable as nature turns angry. That's the biggest story focused on major dailies, but other stories that haven't been focused, and a very interesting one because we'll be seeing this next week when the country will be celebrating Labor Day celebrations. Picture there, Kotu Sekjan, Francis Atoli, they say rival union calls parallel Labor Day celebrations. That's just quite interesting.
Interesting. We'll see what happens.
And maswala elimu, how schools shape success of learners. And finally to the Star.
Yatani in 8.2 billion shilling ESCC corruption probe. Supporters attempt to block arrest of ex-Treasury CS and Marsabit governor. And this is money that was meant for county staff, assemblies allocation, as well as other expenditures. We will continue to see what happens today. Incidentally, another governor is in court. Former Nairobi Governor Evans Kidero is in court today on another charge linked to fraud. Pictures there of this flood situation. Interestingly, we have one of these water bowsers.
Lori ya maji mingi na
lori ya maji iko ndani ya maji. Sasa hiyo tutasemaje? Ni kubaya. I think the headline on the front page of
Taifa Leo
is very apt. Sema ni kubaya. Let's go to the Karakacha sasa. Maswala ya Karakacha kwenye ukurasa
on page 17 of Daily Nation, page 14 of the Standard, and they have all right, we did have page 14 of the Standard there on
oh yes, page 14 of the Standard. Yes. We have yes, Jamawa Dimple. Club Dimples, governor of Nairobi, a caricature of the governor of Nairobi, there with a university degree. And I don't know why they've put that hat, that graduation hat on his head.
It shouldn't be there.
And you see, he has a briefcase branded City Hall, ile Shimo, kickbacks. There's a mine there, cartels. There are sharks, which are 2027.
Yeah.
And then he's asking himself, Nambona haiwak?
Lazima iwak.
Lazima iwak. Mbona haiwaki, imekataa. And they've interestingly used the yellow and green of the UDA party, which he wanted to be the chair of the Nairobi branch of the UDA party. But I do understand that someone else has put a stop to that, interestingly.
Wow.
But we'll have to wait and see. The elections for UDA should be kicking off tomorrow.
On Friday, yeah, on
Yes.
Friday, yeah. For the poll centers.
So his ambitions to be the UDA Nairobi branch chairman, he still harbors the ambitions, but he has a lot more to do, especially in Nairobi. On page 17 of the Daily Nation, they talk about the health crisis. And there are people around the table playing chess while there are so many coffins. This table is actually stationed in the middle of so many coffins. So they talk about deaths, even as KMPDU, the CS for Health, and others, including the CS for Public Service and Labour, cheer on. KMPDU is on one side, and on the other side, everyone is pointing a finger. It points to the stalemate in the health crisis. And that's a cartoon on the Daily Nation today.
On Stano's take on page 10 of the People Daily, he mirrors what was happening yesterday. There's a government as well as a common mwananchi, and each is trying to probably save the other. And apparently each of them is saying, help, you are my last hope.
Yeah, even the government is drowning.
Yes.
And they still use a green and yellow of this government.
Oh, yes.
It's also drowning under the floods. Yes, it is definitely the biggest discussion, the flooding situation across the country. And we'll be looking at this and other stories with my panelists today. On State of the Nation, Gloria Oroba, nominated senator, will be in studio with us. We are hoping Beatrice Elachi, MP Dagoretti North, will be joining us as well. I'm made to understand that Geoffrey Ruku, the MP from Mbeere North, has sent his apologies. He will not be able to join us. But we'll definitely continue this conversation with the MPs from Nairobi. Do stand by for that and a lot more, and be sure to be part of this conversation online through our social media pages on X at TV47 News and on Facebook, TV47 Kenya.
Oh, yes. Most definitely. And also stick around for the launch of the Bunge Towers at around 8 a.m. President William Ruto will be gracing that. And, well, they do expect also other leaders in the Kenya Kwanza government, as well as, well, the members of parliament. Also keen to note from the leaders you'll be having today how they feel is. Exactly. They were talking about lack of privacy and all this, despite the kind of...
But they have a gym.
Oh, yes.
And I think hair salon or something like that.
Oh, yes.
Let's take a break now. You're watching Morning Cafe.
Na safari hii katika Mfahamu Kiongozi tutakuletea viongozi aina mbalimbali.
Nikuwe na Nisani kama 10 na pia nikuwe menua minibus. Minibus nikoniwa.
Kushinda unaangalia simu ya mzee. Soma Biblia ama ingia kwa washroom ujisugue. Mpaka nimetoa hivi.
I don't know whether any of my children would want to get into the political field. Sijajua bado.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30 kuendelea.
Join us on a journey through the concrete jungles and rising skylines, where every beam, every nail tells a story of progress and vision.
In every aspect of life, you know, you have to look at several dynamics.
From groundbreaking,
Nowadays with the tech, you can check on different websites or you check online and you can see some inspiration. So at least that one would be a direction already. I'll know like what kind of style you're going for.
to finishing touches, witness the dedication of the hard-working teams who bring these ambitious dreams to reality. The Realtor, Tuesdays at 6:30 p.m.
Na safari hii katika Mfahamu Kiongozi tutakuletea viongozi aina mbalimbali.
Nikuwe na nisani kama 10 na pia nikuwe menua minibus. Minibus nikoniwa.
Kushinda unaangalia simu ya mzee, soma Biblia ama ingia kwa washroom ujisugue mpaka nimetoa hivi.
I don't know whether any of my children would want to get into the political field. Sijajua bado.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30 kuendelea.
Join us on a journey through the concrete jungles and rising skylines, where every beam, every nail tells a story of progress and vision.
In every aspect of life, you have to look at several dynamics.
From groundbreaking,
Nowadays with the tech, you can check on different websites or you check online and you can see some inspiration. So at least that one would be a direction already. I'll know like what kind of style you're going for.
to finishing touches, witness the dedication of the hard-working teams who bring these ambitious dreams to reality. The Realtor, Tuesdays at 6:30 p.m.
It's good to have you in studio.
Asante sana.
I'm sure you must be very excited this morning. The opening of the great 28-story building, Bunge Towers. The president will be presiding over that event. And yes, it's something that I know most of you have been looking forward to. Or at
I don't
least
know
some
about
of
that.
you.
I don't know about that. I don't know what you're talking about. Excitement.
What is the feeling like in
Definitely not
Parliament?
excited. Yeah.
Okay, tell us more about how you're feeling about this.
I mean, it should be, for me, I feel, for a person who has not had an office for these 20 months I've been there, I don't have an official office. So I guess I have an office.
At least now you have an office.
Yeah, but an office just dedicated for my parliament work. But I wouldn't say that I'm excited, maybe also because I come from the corporate world and certain offices are treated with some certain level of, I would say, respect, privacy, and dignity to some extent. And I was just reading the papers. I've seen that Parliamentary Service Commission has a whole spread in both the papers speaking very highly about this, they call it the modern tower. I don't know, maybe the definition of modern has changed.
It looks very nice from the photos I can see.
When you have
from
lifts
outside, it looks very nice.
that take forever to work, lifts that the speed that operates is like from 18 years ago. I don't know whether that is modern. I don't know. I'm not sure about that description. I can see that the clerks of both the National Assembly and the Senate are speaking very highly. I would question that as well, because for me, when you have a building that was budgeted at 5.8 billion and then you end up with a total cost of 9.6 billion, I wouldn't be speaking very highly about that. In fact, I would have to sit there with a dossier of a report to tell Kenyans why the cost of a building, just skyrocketed double.
But even looking at the time it has taken to have this,
and even just the time it has taken,
because it started in 2010. These are 14 years later.
Fred, unfortunately, or should I say, fortunately, my background is in architecture. I studied architecture and I actually practiced for at least about a year. And I was in that field of construction. So there are so many red flags that I can imagine we would need a spread to really try to speak highly about it. But personally, just as an end user of the product, because now when they started the project, obviously I was not in Parliament. Now I'm the end user, and I'll tell you that there are so many strange things about the building.
Very so strange, because I know you mentioned something about privacy, and I'm wondering, what kind of privacy is this?
You know, the way the offices have been set up, and I don't think that was the intent. I think this is something that happened towards the end. I feel like there was not, the architectural process, or even maybe the brief of it, was not targeting members of Parliament. Members of Parliament have a very specific role, and within the confines of the specific role, you'll find that there are things that are necessary for members of Parliament to have. In an office space of a member of Parliament, for instance, there is no way you can lack a waiting room. Because in a day, as an elected member of Parliament, in office, you would see over 50 people. Literally, the electorate builds up and piles queues to your office because they have needs, they have things that they want to talk to their member of Parliament about. There's no waiting room for a member of Parliament. Waiting room? There's no waiting room.
At all?
At all. There isn't. The other thing is that you have the setup of the place is made in such a way that 2 members of Parliament are sharing an office.
Sharing an office or sharing the common area?
They're sharing an office because if my staff, if my personal assistant and my secretary has to sit with your personal assistant and your secretary, we are sharing an office. We are sharing resources. We are sharing a common entrance.
But many may wonder, what is so wrong with sharing?
Let me tell you what is. It's not about anything that is wrong with sharing. It's about the nature of the work that you're doing. It's about the nature of politics. It's about the nature of that office in itself. You are dealing with very sensitive issues from different types of people, different constituencies of people. That's one thing. The second thing, politics in its nature requires that as a member of Parliament, you are able to have full visibility of your staff, of your work, and have the sense of, let me say, control of the operations of your work. When you are put together with another member of Parliament, and just like a normal workplace, they have to interact. My PA has to interact with your PA because now they're sitting in the same office. You know what that means? That means that if I'm attending a certain specific event that I probably would not want to have other members anticipate, it is already out there. It means that if they are on phone calls trying to deal with the electorate on sensitive matters,
someone else is listening.
Someone else is listening. And you know, this issue of sharing has nothing to do with privilege. It has everything to do with the nature of the work. As a matter of fact, I have raised this concern and asked, because I've seen that the clerk of both houses have spoken very highly talking about all these lovely things about that place. I have asked, why haven't they both taken a unit to share? Because if these are people who are supposed to serve members of Parliament, you understand? They are at the service, the clerk of the National Assembly and the clerk of the Senate are at the service of the members of Parliament.
There's also the issue about the size.
Yet, they are not able to take a unit that they have given the people that they're serving and also share. In any case, as clerks, they have so many more things in common than us members of Parliament. So they should, if by show of goodwill, they should take a unit, the same units that they are offering the members of Parliament.
Offices within the main building.
But also, a lot of members of Parliament already have offices at KICC where they're comfortable in. As a matter of fact, in the Senate, we have about 25 people who have outrightly declined to move from their offices to go to those offices.
Some of the complaints are about the size of the offices.
The sizes of the offices, you know, for me, you can put me in a corner, I'll be fine, right? I'm specially elected. I represent women. Women have the same nature of problems, right? Yeah, but you cannot compare also even a specially elected person like me representing women to a county women rep, because the nature of what they're dealing with is different. Remember, they deal with bursaries, they have a fund that they have to utilize. So, you know, I was even asking myself, the architect, because I have told you I have a background in architecture, the architect of that building There is so the building is in such a way, if you look at it, one side the view is literally touching on the expressway, which is another security concern, and the other side overlooks the city center. In the middle of those two sides, there is a sort of, I would say, corridor where they have put together spaces which they are referring to as the atrium. Office spaces which do not have windows. The windows that are there are overlooking the corridors. You have to be 24/7 under the air conditioning.
But
you have to be 24/7 under the electricity.
This plan was initially mooted in 2009 when the number of constituencies, we only had one parliament, one house of parliament.
I know.
And the number of representatives
were actually 200, or
yes,
290.
Yes.
Which that is why I'm wondering, why are they forcing?
Now you're close to 400
yes,
plus.
But why? And this is now this is my question to the Parliamentary Service Commission. This building was designed for the National Assembly at 290 something
But even
members.
the National Assembly itself has more members now, over 349.
And that's why my question would be, why try to fit 500 people in there? And that's why I told you, even the initial plan, I do not think was to have members of parliament share the spaces. The initial plan was that a member of parliament, the way it has been set up, you walk in, it's a common area with all the secretaries, the PA, the drivers, everyone. On the right is one member of parliament. On the left is one member of parliament. I would tell you the initial plan is that on the right would be the member of parliament's office, on the left would be the staff member's office, and the center, which they are forcing our staff members to sit, was supposed to be the waiting area, which would now accommodate the electorate. As it stands now, the electorate will be standing on the corridors or having to wait all the way outside in the parking. When you're done with one meeting, you do the communications on the phones. It's the logistical nightmare.
But the questions that do arise is
just impossible.
This building is right next door to the houses.
The
of Parliament.
office have been allocated. You can pause your car at the expressway and say hi to me.
Yes, even from Parliament building, you can see this building.
Yes.
And there have been changes that we saw. At some point, that section of road between the police station to Uhuru Highway was blocked so that the underpass for you people to use, members of Parliament to use, is constructed because, and that was an issue of luxury, privacy as well, meaning that members of Parliament were aware that there are some issues that needed to be adjusted. It was not in the initial plan. How come they missed out all these other things but
I don't think they missed out. What I'm trying to tell you is Parliamentary Service Commission is being cheeky, is the word. Because if you have a building that has been designed to accommodate 290 members of parliament, how in the hell would you now try to fit anything more than that?
But the question is, parliamentarians' role is oversight and representation. In terms of oversight, how could you have missed this for 14 years? How could 3 houses of parliament miss this for 14 years?
That is also my question. And as a matter of fact, I wish I was in parliament earlier, because all the noise I would have made probably would have, some of the things would have been changed. I was not in parliament. But I can tell you, this house, already at the Senate yesterday, there was a statement that was delivered by Senator Cherargei, questioning, first of all, the variances. When you have an initial budget of 5.8 and then it just doubles, and that is how you conclude, there is no transparency in the contractors. As it stands now, and in fact, those are some of the things we are asking, we are being told, go and occupy those spaces. The certificate of completion of that building, I mean, if someone has seen it, they should please share it with us who are going to occupy that space. Because that's a big red flag. Normally, there's the certificate to show that the work is done, and then there's the occupational licenses and certificates that you get. Those two things are missing, you understand? And yet, and I feel very bad about this, that's why when you invited me to come and speak, I asked myself, do I want to go for the official opening of a building that I am raising so many questions, or should I come to studio and raise those questions? As a responsible leader, and a person who is going to occupy that building with all the red flags that it has, I thought I need to come here and now highlight some of these things. Okay. But I can tell you, my biggest red flag aside, and you asked about oversight. We are oversighting county government budgets. We are oversighting the governance on county governments, which is a bigger entity, the Parliamentary Service Commission. But we are failing in oversighting Parliamentary Service Commission. And when I say this, it's not because of the last 2 houses that missed out on
Even
on
the
this
13th Parliament
particular
is failing.
On the 13th Parliament, how many times have you we even now when we are being told go and occupy those spaces, excuse me, if anything was to happen in there, the clerk of the Senate does not sit in that building. The people you see on these pictures here, all of them, the commissioners, the clerks, the speaker, they are not going into that building. All these faces on the spread have no offices in that building. So I always say, God forbid, if anything happens, because we cannot see the certificate of completion, we cannot see the occupancy and all the licenses involved in that. God forbid, all these people who are putting their faces here talking very highly about this building, the clerk of the Senate, the clerk of the National Assembly are not sitting in that building.
The speaker of the National Assembly, who chairs the Parliamentary Service Commission,
is not sitting in that
branded
building.
Anyone who has spoken against the building as rejectionists.
We can be branded as whatever. We are the ones who are going to be in that building. Is he going to be sitting in a building where from the expressway you can be shot down? I'm the one who's sitting there. Yeah? I'm the one who's going to have one toilet on the same floor with over 100 people having to share. I mean, most of these things are just even in your house.
You've previously mentioned something twice, and I want us to talk about it because we've not even probed it properly. And this has to do with the expressway. The expressway was constructed in the last 3, 4, 5 years, and everyone knew it's right next to Parliament buildings.
Yes.
But you're now raising issues about the safety of parliamentarians because of proximity to that highway.
And you know, sometimes in construction, some of these things happen where you've had the design, you've done the groundbreaking, you've even started building, and then something like an expressway has to be, you know, somehow incorporated around your building. It's very normal. But then now what you do is you adjust the use of the spaces. For instance, you see a lot of commercial buildings coming up and they envision that one side will have a residential part and the other side will have an office place. And within time, because the town is always changing, the side for the residential ends up having busy roads and whatever. You change or you try and now say, how do we use this building and still have a maximum efficient use of space, but not...
Are you suggesting that the Houses of Parliament should be moved?
No, but you can, you know, for instance, the orientation of the building remains, but the spaces are not stuck, you know? If you had planned 55 offices that are now touching on the expressway, you have to ask yourself, would you put your majority leader there? Would you put a member of parliament there? What is the risk of a member of parliament vis-a-vis a staff who is not a member of parliament? You know, we call it use of space. And it happens anywhere because the security of a member of parliament, and this is why sometimes people are given bodyguards, you cannot just overlook it because at the end of the day, it's a leader who has been elected, it's a leader who is an accounting officer of a fund, for instance, the CDF that they've been put. So for me, I was questioning, fine, the expressway came, we are not saying we move the building. But couldn't you have done a survey of the offices that have been affected directly in terms of security and say, how can we change the use of that into something else? Because for instance,
this is 14 years later, 9.6 billion shillings later, and we're wondering, because you're all saying no, is it a situation that can be remedied?
I don't know if it is all of us, but I personally, and maybe I've said unfortunately, is because I have the privilege. I had the privilege of, first of all, being in the space of design and build, so I can see so many things. You know, Fred, imagine in one floor, you have I don't know how many number of offices, you have I don't know how many number of staff members, and then you have one set of toilets. Forget the fact that you have to consider there are people that might not be given appointments for one reason or another because maybe the appointments are being staggered or whatever. All they have to do is go wait for you in the toilet. Yeah, I mean, really, those are just basic
the toilets,
things.
You're sharing the toilets, even the members of
And there's
Parliament?
nothing wrong with sharing the toilets. The issue is...
The officers don't have private toilets?
Yeah, no. And even in Parliament, it's not that we have private toilets, but there is somehow a restriction of movement so that you don't feel like that person who you've been telling, no, I cannot give you double bursary, will suddenly find you in the toilet.
You've just given, you've just given some constituents ideas.
But people have to know this.
And on how to...
When you see members of parliament refusing and saying, Missy Endi Uko, it is not because they're being, and it's not even that. Okay, now you have an issue of, and this I always say is a very small you might think stupid issue, but when you think about it in the long run, it is actually a security risk. We have a common kitchen. So all members of parliament, all, there are staff members, whoever. If, let's say, Fred, you want to come to my office today, obviously you're expecting me to give you tea if it's morning, right? It's all coming from one place.
One single kitchen, the whole building.
Every floor, one. So all those people now have the luxury of you know, for our security, sometimes Fred people, I used to think that members of parliament are very complex people, but
I don't think you answered my question.
We have seen how people, for instance, in Kisii County, we had Onyonka handed a bottle of water and he was poisoned.
But now, you coming from an architectural background, is it possible to remedy this situation? Because this is almost 10 billion
What
shillings
is possible,
later.
first of all, is, yes, it's possible. There are so many things that can be addressed and fixed. It's not an issue of moving the building. Because I can't speak to the structural safety of the building, because when I look at how you move from 5.8 to 9.6, it also poses some questions of what were you trying to cure? Because, you know, before you go to construction, you have your quantity surveyor giving you all the costings that you require based on the design that has been tabled. For those costings to change very drastically, what is it that you messed up that you are trying to cure? Is it that you have a pillar somewhere that maybe the quality of the concrete or what? I can't tell you the structural sanity of it. But in terms of this use of space, yes, number one, don't try and fit something like 500 people, up to 600 people in a building that was designed for 290, maximum 300 people. Already there you have an issue, even in terms of load. Because when you're doing, the engineers are doing load, they look at the space use, they look at the traffic, even in terms of those 6 lifts that they are now praising very highly when you look at the spread that they have purchased parliamentary service. Those 6 lifts were designed knowing there are 290 something members of parliament, not 600 coming in. So even in terms of traffic maintenance, you know, there's something called facilities management. You will end up having a lot of wear and tear because you are overloading a building that was initially designed for less people. Okay. So that one, they can cure by saying, this was a building designed for National Assembly. Senators have got nothing to do with it. Let the National Assembly go in and occupy their spaces without having to share. Okay. 1. 2, the expressway, when it came, even before now offices were being allocated, as I said, there are some common areas that do not pose a big threat in terms of being outrightly subjected to the expressway. You can shift them. Committee rooms, because we have committee rooms, we have meeting rooms, we have, those are things that you could shift, put them on this side and look for the other secure places where a member of parliament will be sitting for more than 4 hours and safeguard it. Okay. Forget even that, okay. Because people are saying, usiende sana. I had some member of parliament saying, why couldn't they put bulletproof windows? Because their fear, I don't know why, maybe where they come from, there's a lot of shooting at member of parliament, but their fear is that somebody will go to expressway and shoot them. Yeah. Okay. So, and you know, these fears, depending on who, and I wouldn't put it past, because if you go to areas like Turkana and where they have bandits, their fears are valid. Okay. They are feeling like they are not safe.
Because initially when discussions around this building began, this is some years back, by then maybe you are not a member of parliament, we were told about what kind of amenities would be available here. A gym, probably other amenities, just for the comfort of members. Are those things there?
I have taken a very brief tour. I'll be honest with you. I went through the tunnel, which I find completely unnecessary, but okay. Someone has rationalized it to me. I went through the tunnel, and because I wanted to see how that looks like. And then I went to my office, initially, which was on 8th floor, and I requested to be moved. And I used the lifts, and I looked at the common area. All these amenities, I have not seen them. And maybe my issue is not, because that's not what brought me to parliament. I didn't come to parliament because of a gym and a salon and a place where I can get my massage and a restaurant. So maybe that's why I didn't go to see them. But as it stands now, we have all of those things.
Well, they are there.
They exist. We have a parliament gym.
No, but in this new building, there was provision for those things.
There's provision, but there's nothing special because we have a gym right now.
Okay.
Which I've gone to and seen, and it's very functional. We have restaurants right now, which I've gone to have seen, and it's very functional. So when they say modern, unless they were going to talk about a smart gym or whatever, but it's the same. We already have those amenities.
Okay.
And to be honest, for you to put in a gym and all those things and probably have it, I can't speak to the space and everything, but I am sure, because I've had guys saying it's so luxurious and this and that. And then go and have members of parliament share their offices. Where are your priorities? Are members of parliament getting elected to come to the gym?
Okay.
Is our safety more focused at the gym or at the office where I'm talking to my electorate who elected me, you know? So for me, that's where now I see misplaced priority.
You mentioned something earlier, and it's about the inability or rather failure by members of parliament or the houses of parliament to oversight this institution or committee.
There was definitely a failure.
The Parliamentary Service Commission.
The Parliamentary Service Commission.
What is the issue there? You seem to suggest that the Parliamentary Service Commission is a runaway team that does whatever they want.
Yes, they do. Yes, especially in the past 2 terms, because how could they let something like this happen? Okay, and this current one, my question to the commissioners of this current one, and I've talked to Joyce Korir, I've talked to, what's his name, Kinyua. I spoke to Kinyua, Joyce Korir and Kinyua from Senate, and I told them, you guys can be comfortable and go and do your launch and everything, because Korir's office is not there. Kinyua's office is not there. Commissioners don't sit there. They have special offices outside of there. Is it a system
issue that the Parliamentary Service Commission can just do anything without proper oversight from the people it represents?
I feel, in fact, if you ask me, and I don't know how to go about it, maybe now if I've said it, they are going to find a loophole to cover it. There should be another mechanism to oversight Parliamentary Service Commission.
Currently, there's none.
Yeah, because, for instance, when this building last week, when we were told there's going to be the opening and everything, I'm not in the Senate business group because they removed me and they've refused to speak things, and people will start feeling this is how we should. So you remove the person who speaks too much. So I am told that Senator Wambua and others actually raised the issue of why are we trying to force all the senators to fit there? What is the thinking behind? And obviously he was addressing Parliamentary Service Commission through the commissioners. Myself, I sent a message to the Speaker, and I asked the Speaker very kindly and professionally, if this building is everything that you people say it is, and those offices are everything that you say it is, why are you not sitting there? You, the Speaker of the Senate and the Speaker of the National Assembly, can also take a unit the same as ours and share. Because you also can't be the same people saying, this thing is nice, why, if it's so nice, why are you not moving there? All these people I'm telling you, you see this page here, all this, the clerks, the speakers, the commissioners, they have special offices outside of Bunge Towers.
Do they enjoy so many privileges that probably...
They don't share offices.
That probably could make other parliamentarians uncomfortable with the
I mean,
operations?
being a commissioner, it also is like, because of the sensitivity of the things you're dealing with, there are some certain elements, and that is in order. But my question is, you see, when the president is always telling us, pay taxes, we're going to, he's the first one from his salary to be deducted. So when these people are here on a spread speaking highly of Bunge Towers, my question is, why don't they occupy offices inside there?
All right.
And that goes to all the leadership of the House. They don't occupy offices in Bunge Towers. If it's as glorious as it is, it should also be able to facilitate these people.
But there is a cost implication when most of you occupy offices outside Parliament buildings. Like, for example, you mentioned those at KICC and elsewhere. Initially, the system is that because Parliament does not have its designated, and that's why billions were spent to purchase and have ownership of an office facility, so that we don't have the recurrent costs of having to rent offices. So those offices at KICC, at Red Cross, at Protection House, all those offices, they were rented under Parliamentary Service Commission and then given to members of Parliament. But even those offices, the people don't share. In all of those offices, we are not sharing anything, those who have offices there. The people in KICC don't want to move, because they are being moved from an office that works
and suits them as a parliamentarian in terms of the number of people that you come to see you, they are being moved now to matchboxes. So even just if you just ask a simple question, okay, why don't you consider the previous conditions where the members of parliament are, let them be exact conditions where you're moving them to. Because that would mean there's no sharing. That would need
extra space now beyond the current Bunge Towers.
What they're doing, I've told you, they're trying to fit a building that was designed for 290 people. They're trying to fit 600 people.
There are those who've even suggested that probably it is time to move the Houses of Parliament from where they currently sit and probably to Upper Hill or a different space.
I don't see the necessity in that, because to be honest, the security around Parliament is not a joke. Yeah, and it has worked. It is central. People are able to come and see you there. Even the idea of having the offices dedicated to parliamentarians is a good idea. In fact, Bunge Towers is a good idea if they kept to the concept, which was National Assembly having to occupy the building. Trying to fit 2 houses in a building for one is where all the mistakes start. You're going to overwhelm the services, the lifts, the toilets, as I've told you, because now every floor has one toilet that you share. You're overwhelming the amenities that were initially designed for a few people.
Okay.
And my question would be, why? Why would you do that? If you are able to allocate 9.6 billion targeted to a house to host National Assembly, which was hosting 300 people, 290 members of parliament. Why are you trying to deny the Senate its own house?
Okay.
Yeah. Why are you trying to and we don't want to I'm not proposing we get into another white elephant project like Bunge Towers. No, there are existing buildings which you can just go take over.
Including the Hilton Hotel.
Including the Hilton Hotel, which is just there, you know.
All right, President William Ruto is today expected to preside over the official opening of Bunge Towers. It is being described here as an ultra-modern 26-story building for members of parliament. There have been enough complaints from most of those who are expected to occupy this space, including Senator Gloria Uroba here. And this is a project that was mooted back in 2009 when President Mwai Kibaki was still in office, and initial funding was expected to be about 5.6 billion shillings, and by the end of this project it had spent 9.6 billion shillings, almost 90%.
And with no clarity of where the money went.
All right. So today the official opening will happen. Now let's focus on the main story of the day.
Yes.
And it has to do with the flooding nightmare that this country is facing. And yes, we've talked about issues of planning, and the fact that you come from an architectural background also will be quite key in this conversation. Of course, floods are natural occurrences. It's a natural disaster. But there's an element of human interference or intervention or human behavior that has affected or exacerbated the situation to what we are seeing now, especially in urban areas, especially in Nairobi. We've seen the kind of constructions happening in Athi River, which is not in Nairobi, it's actually in Machakos County, but it's still among the Nairobi metropolis. And we've seen what's happening in other areas, Mathare, informal slums, and areas like Zimmerman and Roysambu, where constructions have come up without the requisite or complementary sewage and drainage infrastructure. Now, that's an issue of urban planning. A lot of blame has been put on the governor, and you see some of the cartoons, and they're saying, Nikama high work. Are we being too harsh on Governor Sakaja, who's only been in office for about 1 year or so, given the fact that some of this failure could be blamed on successive county and even Nairobi city administrations from as far back as 20, 30 years ago?
You know, I'm trying to weigh that question. Are we being too harsh on Governor Sakaja? And then you go ahead and say, because the issues are from before. I don't know whether to, I don't know how to measure that, because I feel like as the governor of Nairobi, really, it stops with you. We can blame a lot of people. You know, previously people were saying, why would the president say, oh, the previous government, because the expectation is that we don't care about the previous government. Now you're the one who's in office, do something about it, you know? And I feel the same way, because I know that Nairobi, the pressure that has been exerted on our sewer system, on our drainages, on our just amenities is also, it's
including
a recurring...
the riparian reserves.
Yes, it has been an ongoing problem. So it didn't just start, it's not the moment we saw in Governor Sakaja is when our sewer systems were messed up. No, it's actually, it has been a growing concern. And, but I think, and this is where I feel that Governor Sakaja has failed us, the question on these new buildings that have been coming up, the permits that were being given from change of user from residential to commercial, from 3-story to multiple story, from even a closed residential road into suddenly a matatu route, you know. People have been registering their concerns officially and unofficially to Governor Sakaja since he got into office. And you know, one of the things that Governor Sakaja was voted in on was that he said Nairobi lazima iwak, because he went in knowing that the problems of Nairobi someone needs to stop those problems, cure the problems, and take the city to another height. But what he did, and what I think, now this is where I blame him, is you already knew that we had a lot of illegal constructions on road reserves, on riparian land, on even, how do you call it, controlled areas where you're not even supposed to have multiple story buildings. You already knew that. So when people were voting for you, it's because you promised that Nairobi lazima iwak. Knowing, you even were voicing out the concerns which people had registered, saying, you know, when I enter, we are going to deal with the issue of water. We are going to deal with the issue of illegal connections of electricity and all the fires that have been getting to our markets. These are promises that Sakaja stood and said, Nairobi lazima iwak. So that's the reason why the expectation is not only high, but the registered disappointment that people have on Sakaja is that you fooled us.
But is it practically possible for one governor to come and change wrongs that have already been committed? I remember once Governor Sonko embarked on a demolition of buildings and other structures erected on riparian reserves, including a very famous petrol station right here in Kileleshwa. And immediately after he left office, that petrol station came back. And you
know, sometimes. And I want to quote my party leader, the president. He has been heard saying so many times, it's not about being popular. It's not about making popular decisions. Because as a leader, you have to take the hard decisions, knowing very well that you are actually taking care of your people. They might not have that foresight, but you as the leader, you have to take those decisions. That's what Sonko did. He took the hard decisions head on. And at that time, people were like, what's this about? How is he getting money from people to destroy people's businesses? No, he was taking the hard decisions. And then you have a governor who's sworn in, who knows that our sewer lines, our roads, our everything has the pressure on the amenities that we have had is so high that we need to figure out on how to expanding those amenities. But instead, and I would ask for an audit. I'm officially going to ask in the Senate, an audit of how many permits and how many licenses and how many construction projects have come up from the time Governor Sakaja was sworn in and now. Because therein lies the answer. Therein lies the answer. And we can actually compare that with the successive, the previous governors. We say, okay, when Kidero was there, let us look at the rate of development. When Sakaja was there, let's look at the rate of development. Of course, we are going to factor in all other figures, including how the economy was growing or not. But something has to be constant. There is no way that a governor sits and says, I'm not going to approve all these things because I know the pressure it's going to exert on ABCD.
But is it possible
then the
for
next governor comes in and signs everything in.
Is it possible for a politician to actually, let's say, for example, embark on a proper audit of all the waterways in Nairobi and all the interference on these waterways and rectify?
You know, one thing I found out since I went into Parliament, the resources that, and I'm not talking about money, I'm talking about even human resources, the resources that an elected leader has, the information
it's not even about the capacity
that they have access to.
It's a political will to do some of these things because it comes at a cost.
It's a political will, but this is also where I still go back to my party leader who says you are elected, there's a time to be popular. You're popular. You have 5 years to deliver something to the people of Kenya so that they can be able to see, oh my goodness, kumbe those things that you are demolishing, because in another 2 years or less, we will be in the floods.
Would Nairobi be better managed by someone or an entity that is not concerned about popularity, political popularity?
No, I don't think that is the issue, because you can't also speak highly about NMS. NMS was a looting machine. You can't. So that direction of, oh, maybe turn Nairobi into a weird kind of entity, no. There are politicians who are doing a good job, who are managing their counties in the same way. They still need to balance their popularity, but they put the needs of the people beforehand.
There was a time when the Nairobi county had a Nairobi Metropolitan Ministry, and the head of it with a substantive cabinet secretary just taking care of this. And you remember cabinet secretary, the late Mutula Kilonzo, working on the waterways and saying that he's even going to try and swim. I don't want to rubber stamp NMS. I've told you NMS was a looting machine, because the reason why we sat down and crafted a constitution that had stopgap measures and oversight and checks and balances, we were not stupid. You can't wake up and create another amorphous thing and then try and say because Nairobi can't be handled like even
any
when that
other
system appears not to be working?
No, you can't say that. You can't say that, because it worked. And even if it did not work with the efficiency that it did, when Kidero was in office, I'm sorry, I will say this, some things worked. When Sonko was in office, as crazy and as mad as that man was, some things worked. Those things that worked during Kidero and Sonko's time are all not working during Sakaja's time.
What do you think is the biggest weakness for Sakaja?
I think Sakaja is absent.
He's not present.
He's not present. And I don't mean physically. You know, you can be physically present and mentally absent and not there. You can be living in your own world where everything is on TikTok and everything is about being cool, and you're absent. Yeah.
Do you think his political ambitions probably are hindering him?
I don't even think it's the political ambition.
He in the upcoming UDA grassroots elections, he's vying for the Nairobi.
That has nothing to do with it. Nairobi has been failing since before we had these elections. Nairobi has been failing since before we had this UDA elections. Do you think it would be
appropriate for him to involve himself in party matters more, as opposed to the kind of job?
I don't think anything can affect where Sakaja is now. Whether he goes for the UDA party elections, that has nothing to do with him deciding that, honestly, people elected me and I need to stop the shenanigans and work. You know, it's a mental, what I've come to realize in politics, because I'm very new in politics, and I always tell people, don't take my advice, I'm only 20 months old, and you add maybe 2 years of campaign. But what I've come to quickly realize, if you have no intention to grow and to get somewhere, your actions will just show. Because even where I am, I'm especially elected, we are 20 months or so in. I look at my other colleagues who are specially elected like me. I look at what I have achieved in my term right now in 20 months and what some of them have achieved. And you can tell that this one is going somewhere and is intentionally acting to go somewhere, and this one is happy to be here and happy to have a salary. And I feel right now, Sakaja is happy to be here and happy to have a salary. Because indeed, if Sakaja was trying to even get re-elected, honestly, I wish he could pick one thing that he has done right. And sometimes you don't need to do a lot of things. You just need to pick one thing. I know that he has the school feeding program. I will give that to him. But I also know that the school feeding program is heavily dependent on a budget that was brokered by the president through international donors.
Okay.
So he needs to own something. You know, you need to own something. Like, we can say all the things we want to say about Sonko, but Sonko rescued him. You can't take away from him.
I'm looking at a headline from yesterday's paper. This is attributed to, this is a Standard, the Wednesday edition. And the headline reads on page 10, you have letters down. UDA now tells Sakaja overwrought at City Hall. These are members of the UDA party calling out Sakaja. And these are elected members, your colleagues in both the National Assembly and probably even the Senate. They quote KJ, the MP for Gatundu South, and they're calling for investigative authorities to move into City Hall and probe alleged wanton graft. Do you think that probably there's too much corruption and probably
Definitely.
Governor Sakaja has not been able to rein in his team?
The level of corruption in Nairobi County is crazy. It's insane. If someone gives you the figures that some of those county officials are earning per day in their pockets, you will be so disgusted when you see people dying of floods now. Because some of those figures that individuals are earning could literally be used as a response mechanism for this kind of flooding disaster. And that's what I told you. I feel like the governor is absent because it's not the first time people are telling him, hey, this is your person, this is what they're doing. It's not the first time. You know, the thing is, even within, and this is what I like about the UDA party, yeah? Because I'm from UDA, Sakaja is from UDA. Within our party, within our own, where we convene WhatsApp groups and when we have our PGs, we call each other out in front of the party leader. We tell you, I came to your office, I told you this is what I gave you the app, why didn't you act on it? Because that's what responsible leaders are supposed to do. And I would say, we feel let down. And when I say we, this one authoritatively, as a party, we feel let down because we had, I personally had, yes, by the governor of Nairobi, because I personally had very high hopes. And you know, don't forget that when a young leader is given this kind of mandate, yeah, you know, we've had two young leaders. We've had Sonko and now we have Sakaja. And the glaring failures of the young leaders is the reason why people might not even consider Babu Owino. And
drawing parallels with the Sonko tenure, at some point, he was considered to have failed in one or two things, prompting the intervention of the national government. You've already said you wouldn't want to go the NMS way. No. But when even the party that sponsors Sakaja to parliament is actually seeing direct failure and calling him out, a year and 6 months into his tenure, do you think it's time for intervention of some sort?
But not that kind of intervention. We have interventions within our constitution, like impeachment. We have those kind of interventions.
Do you think he's ripe for impeachment?
Oh my goodness, if Sakaja is not hearing anybody, I had a statement at the floor of the house, I sent it to him, I was like, please. Yes, we understand that the floods are not necessarily, the flooding in the city is not necessarily just because of the clogged drainages. It is a combination of many things, including the fact that it's raining like crazy, yeah? But I was like, fine, it's raining like crazy, and it's definitely also an issue of all these buildings that have come up. But you know, one other issue why we have flooded areas, Oledume up, our drainages are blocked.
But I want to get
so I say deal with the blocking.
Are you saying Sakaja should be impeached?
I mean, if he goes on like this, he should be impeached. He should be.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, at one point, something has got to give. And if we are telling you, do something, and it's not only about the floods. The floods, you can't 100% say we're impeaching you because of the floods. But you can say we're impeaching you because Nairobi County is the highest earning county in terms of on-source revenue. Yet when we look at how that money is being spent, we really can't account for it.
Okay.
We can impeach you on the basis that the level of corruption that has actually been evidently displayed by your team in your full knowledge, because you're being informed and you can see these things, why are you not taking some kind of action against these individuals? Why are you still leaving them in office? Another thing we can impeach Sakaja on is that This Nairobi County has residents. They pay levies in all sorts of forms. And the services that the residents, including the women in the market, are asking for are really just basic rights. And they are shouting and telling you, and you're not interested. Yes, you have brought food to schools. Yes, we acknowledge, and we like dish in our county. But we didn't elect you just for that.
Okay.
So if you want to ride on that and say, I'm working because children are eating, the schools are flooded. They can't even be served that food.
Okay.
So, I mean, if he can't do, he needs to make a turnaround. He needs an overhaul of his team. He needs to fire people, literally. He needs to wait. The next press conference from Sakaja should be how he has fired literally 80% of his staff members, and not only fired them, handed them over to EACC with all the allegations that have been put up.
Correct.
And if he can't make a turnaround at this point, why should we sit and wait 4 years to just watch someone failing?
And page 14, the cartoon on the Standard, page 14, has an image there of the governor, interestingly, with the graduation headgear. I don't know why the cartoonist decided to put that headgear there. I think the cartoonist has found a very interesting way of pointing out some of the issues.
What do you think it means?
His briefcase there is branded kickbacks. There's a mine there, branded cartels, and there are sharks in the ocean with the numbers 2027, meaning there's an ambition for 2027. Something is coming up.
What do you think his headgear means?
I do not know. I'm not the cartoonist here. And I'm probably you. What's your interpretation of that?
No, you know, there's been queries about his degree. So I think you know, it's part, you know, when a cartoonist will try and communicate 100 messages in one picture, I think that's what they're trying to do. For me, I wouldn't put so much focus on that. Sonko did better than what we are seeing.
But you mentioned because he says here Nambona haiwaka, but you mentioned that this would appear like an indictment on young leadership. That probably looking at
really
Sakaja right now,
yes.
People may not consider another.
People might not consider. I know Babu Owino has ambitions, but you know the timing could be a problem because we've had 2 young leaders. Because Sonko is not necessarily old, he was there. And we saw what he subjected us to, dress code, nini, drama. But you know, I still say somehow Sonko delivered to the people. But there was a lot of issues here and there, yeah? Which I'm sure if he went back, he would have now learned something and changed. Is
Nairobi County too much for a young leader who has ambition?
No, I don't think so.
Bigger?
No, I don't think so. We have Governor from Nandi, Sang.
Comparing Nandi to Nairobi.
No, but even if you compare apples and tomatoes and still put 2 young leaders, if it's about the age, even those tomatoes there, the young people there would have failed. I'm just saying it's not an issue of age. It's an issue of understanding why you have been elected. And maybe Sakaja thinks he was elected because he was cool or he appeared cool, because the only thing I've seen consistent with him through his PR team and communications team has been the trying to maintain the coolness. Everywhere he goes, it's about being cool.
A nightclub at Uhuru Park.
A nightclub at Uhuru Park, for Christ's sake. It's about being cool. Even when he gives his speeches, and you know, please don't take this personally, there are places you don't need to be cool. People are looking up to you so that you can deliver a message that they will hold on to and run with. But you can't be cool all the time. You can't. That's not the thing.
In one of the headlines, it was described as all dimples and nothing more.
And you know, look at Babu Owino, who's trying to make a come up to be the governor. Even he knows it's not about being cool. In fact, if there's a person who's running away from being cool, it's Babu Owino. You can see in his recent speeches, in the things that he's engaging, it is trying to show people you can take me seriously. This thing of being cool, at the end of the day, the people who elected you don't even know what these things mean. They are wondering, kwa soko yetu mbona tunashinda tukichomekewa. We are not interested in those TikTok things. So I feel like you can't say that young people cannot be leaders. What you can say is that, unfortunately, the few young people who God has given them authority to lead Nairobi County as governors have made it difficult for people like Babu Owino, who sincerely, he has the ability. But now if you put Babu Owino and Tim Wanyonyi based on what Sakaja is subjecting us to, I think even I will be like, let's try maybe an older person. Yeah.
Interesting. And yes, there's a cartoon there on the front page of, on page 14 of the Standard there, what's happening in Nairobi. They call it City Hall, the briefcase there, kickbacks, and the governor asking Nambona high work.
And you know, they put him at the beach because they're always saying he's somewhere on a beach. You know, that is a beach.
Interesting. You're still watching Morning Cafe. Time now for us to take a break. We'll be back to discuss a lot more, including what's featuring on the back page of the Daily Nation, Ruto's commitment to taming wage bill to be tested as CAS's law heads to him for signing. That after the break.
We value your feedback. If you would like to send questions, comments, suggestions, or complaints for any of our programs, call us by telephone number 0740-047-047 or email us with Insurance Regulatory Authority. It is any parent's joy to know that their child's education in future is secured. Education costs are increasingly expensive while the future is filled with uncertainties. Take an education insurance policy today to assure your child's education in future in case of death or permanent disability. Your education policy remains valid. No further premiums are payable and your child's education is assured. Read and understand the terms and conditions of your policy. This message is brought to you by IRA.
In the world of business, success isn't just about the destination, it's about the journey. Here, we dive deep into the world of entrepreneurship where grit, determination, and innovation intersect.
And don't be a copy-paste, copycat person. Because Miss Said is doing that, I also want to do that. Do not try that.
Na safari hii katika Mfahamu Kiongozi tutakuletea viongozi aina mbalimbali.
Nikuwe na Nisani kama 10 na pia nikuwe menua minibus. Minibus nikoniwa.
Kushinda unaangalia simu ya mzee. Soma Biblia ama ingia kwa washroom ujisugue. Mpaka nimetoa hivi.
I don't know whether any of my children would want to get into the political field. Sijajua.
Straight shooting senator. And we want to take a look at the back page of the Daily Nation now. Focus is now on President William Ruto to see if he'll walk the talk on managing the ballooning wage bill, where the proposed law entrenching chief administrative secretaries is presented to him for assent. And they say that the National Government Administration Amendment Bill of 2023 is expected to be taken to the president on Tuesday next week. The president this month, I think last week during the National Wage Bill Conference, came out to talk about the need to really cut down on our expenditure. He talked about the fake degrees, he talked about issues, even the possibility of cutting down on the number of staff in the public sector. Incidentally, when this bill is supposed to go for him on signing next week, will be one day before Labor Day. So the issues of wages will be key. If he signs it into law, it will change a lot. According to the story I'm reading here, the SRC says it will cost the government about 9.4, is it billion or million shillings? Yes, 9.4 million shillings a year to remunerate one CAS. The president initially had made 50. appointments, meaning we'll be looking at about 500 million shillings or so every year. That will not in any way be living within our means, according to what the president said. It is at a time when this health crisis continues. The strike enters 43rd day today, and one wonders, is it really necessary to have had this thing go through Parliament, given the kind of sentiments in as far as public sector wage bill are concerned?
No, it was necessary because also you cannot run an office unconstitutionally. So it was necessary for it to be constitutional, it had to go through Parliament. And parliamentarians having passed it, I'm sure they assessed the need for it and passed it. You know, that's the good thing about Parliament. Parliament is not Kimani Ichung'wah or Aaron Cheriot, the majority. Parliament has many people. Even within committees, you know, people say Parliament has been captured. It is so difficult to capture even a committee which has only 9 members. 4 from opposition, 5 from the government.
What is your opinion about the CAS position?
My opinion about it is that it is a necessity.
50 positions?
Not necessarily 50, but I strongly believe it's a necessity. It has been a necessity. That is why Uhuru Kenyatta had also CAS.
It's been 1.5 years since the cabinet was
and
named.
In 1.5 years...
We've not had CASs. What is the biggest challenge you faced?
And in 1.5 years, go and ask those ministers. And you know the ministers are the ones who didn't want the CASs. And I can tell you right now, when this thing is passing, they are relieved. Because some of them didn't even anticipate the workload of a ministry. Forget the technocrat element of it. Even just managing the political part, the social human interaction part of it is insane. So that office is necessary. I'm telling you for a fact.
When the president comes out to say that the wage bill is untenable, the public sector staff or the workforce is actually bloated.
It is bloated.
Meaning that there are people who could be doing this work at the ministry level.
Let me tell you why it's bloated. Take a ministry like tourism. Yeah, sorry, I have to write. Sometimes my thought process is like that. How many parastatals do you have under tourism? You have Kenya Tourism Board, you have Tourism Fund, you have meetings and something, Kenya meetings and something,
each with its own board of directors.
Do you know the mandate of KTB, Tourism Fund, KMTC can be synchronized into one parastatal? Yet each parastatal here holds a board, employees. You understand? It has duplicated 3 parastatals. So in a sense, when we're talking about making the public service more efficient, first of all, look at streamlining. Even the donors who are giving us finances from outside without having the knowledge of inside have already seen, why are you duplicating things?
Yet there's no push towards that direction.
There is a push towards that direction. Forget about this now. You go now to entities that government owns and tries to manage for profit. Look at even a basic thing like KICC, which we have refused to sell because for whatever reason people are putting and justifying. We have refused to commercialize it and let go of it from being government. Yet if you go and look at the finances that are being spent on the operations of KICC and you look at the return on investment, it's a loss-making government entity that we are holding on to, paying people to continue making losses and paying people to continue depreciating the value of the asset.
But we're adding another layer of government officers.
Before we add a layer, my thing is, because even within these parastatals, for instance, if you collapse these entities I've told you, Kenya Tourism Fund, and all the other state agencies under the Ministry of Tourism that are doing the similar work, if you collapse it into one, you will find that obviously you will not need the same staff members that are in just KTB. You might need still to add a few staff members. So when you're doing change management and making things efficient, as you collapse, you're also looking at where do we need human resource that is. So you'll end up collapsing, you'll lose some staff members, but you'll still have to add some. And what the CAS position, because I know you're asking me, you're talking about collapsing, but you still want to bring the CAS. If I collapse these 3 and the Ministry of Tourism, I'll still have to actually think through how I'm synchronizing the stuff they were doing, and I might probably have to bring in people from outside, but let go of people who are considered redundant.
Yet, if you look at the number of people on the names of those shortlisted for the positions of CAS, it is clear that the president was keen on rewarding loyalists, most of whom lost out at the past election, because even the delays that have happened, we've seen the same individuals, and a few of them appointed to other positions.
Let me just...
So the necessity of the CAS position beyond political comfort is what we are asking.
You know, the other day, there was, I can't remember which minister who came, and they were clearly overwhelmed to Parliament. And they said, you know, I'm just coming from a committee in the National Assembly, and then I have to be here in plenary with the Senate. And after this, I am going back to plenary in the National Assembly. And after that, the committee of the Senate is. So their whole day, they are in Parliament. Because they also, their office has to respond to the things that Parliament is playing oversight on. You know, when they said that, I said, now do you understand why you need CASs? Because when you're here...
Yeah, this is a creation.
You know?
Even members of cabinet appearing before the Houses of Parliament was a creation of this new administration.
And it's critical.
It was not. It's not a requirement of the Constitution.
But ministers used to appear in Parliament.
Not in the new Constitution.
But before
this
they used to appear in Parliament.
13th Parliament.
But before they used to appear in the old Constitution.
Yes.
And we realized, because legislation is all about making the processes and delivery of services efficient, we realized when the ministers stopped appearing in Parliament, some of the things just went unaccounted for.
Isn't this new system a mongrel of a system?
First of all, it's not a new system.
It is a new system.
No, ministers used to appear.
It is not provided for in our Constitution.
When you say new, you would say it has never happened. But ministers used to appear in Parliament.
We are in agreement that it happened.
Yes, so
in
it's
the
not
old
new.
Constitutional dispensation.
So it is not a new system.
Assistant ministers were there, and all the cabinet ministers and their assistants sat in Parliament as members of Parliament as well.
So did we or did we not have CASs
we did not,
in the last government?
They were there.
Yeah, okay.
But this,
what were they
because
doing?
your justification,
Fred, what were they doing?
Your justification.
No, I'm asking, what were they doing?
I'm not even sure.
Because we had Shebesh, we had these young people who were there.
I'm not justifying why they were there in the last administration. I'm saying your justification for their need right now is because the CSs are now required to appear before.
No. That's not the only justification. No.
What other justification is there?
There is a lot of responsibility on a minister, including appearances outside of Parliament. You know, because it holds a whole ministry. They have to travel around, remember, because as much as we are a national government, they still have to face the needs of regions. An issue, take a ministry like security. It is not only overwhelming in terms of ensuring that your presence is felt as a minister, but also that your policies and your services are delivered. And not only in appearing physically to the regions that you represent, which is all of Kenya. Mm-hmm. So it's not only appearing in Parliament.
Okay.
Yeah, it's appearing in many places. It is, you are mandated sometimes to even represent the president outside of the country.
Do we need 50 CASs?
Let me not be the one to say. That was a proposal by the president. Let me not be the one to say we need or we don't, because to be honest, I'm not the CEO of the country, so I don't have the insights that the president might have to say that he needs.
There's a cap on the number of cabinet secretaries we need.
Yes.
At 22.
Yes.
And initially, when this bill had to come to Parliament, the initial proposal was to cap the number of CASs to equal the number of cabinet secretaries as well. As a principal assistant to a cabinet secretary, each CS to get one CAS. But parliamentarians, you included, removed that cap to allow the president to appoint.
No, and it has not. It's not about just rewarding people, because you have some ministries that have many state departments. You have some ministries that have one state department, and then you have ministries
with a PS in charge of each state department.
Go to sports. Go to sports. You have sports, creative economy. Before they split it, there was culture.
Has a PS at the head.
You know, when you go to culture, you have a whole department dealing with museums and what. Then you have. So that's why I'm saying. And I've learned, before I used to speak very authoritatively even on the things that I don't have insights, but now I have learned, because I do not have the insight that the CEO of the country has.
Okay.
Because you also have to have an insight from an oversight perspective.
Should the Houses of Parliament
I think they should not imply
only at the pleasure of the president? Because you do not understand what the CEO of the country may need.
No. That's not the issue. The issue is that's why I've said this is limited to my perspective, because I'm also very new into politics and very new into governance in the Kenyan government space.
Okay.
So I've done governance 15 years, but in that space. So I'm still learning how the Kenya government works. I will say that you know me, I don't lie. So in fact, in some places I was
being very cautious here.
I'm being very cautious because sometimes you pronounce yourself and mislead people. And I know that some ministries have a very complex way of working. And apparently I've come to learn is because either they house too many parastatals, or they have like branches of departments that need special dedication of workers or resources or whatever. So I can't just say we only need 22, because I don't have the insight of, for instance, how to run the Ministry of Agriculture. I have the insight of how to run the Ministry of Gender. So I can tell you how many CASs we need there.
Okay.
Even arts and culture, I can speak authoritatively.
In terms of numbers,
so please don't.
It will cost the government about 500 million shillings each year. For about 50 CASs, of which that is the number the president
Fred,
said.
I think one thing we need to do before we figure out how many CASs we need.
We're just talking about with the number, because you're talking about the CEO knowing the need.
No, we need, but the need is based on what it is now. But if we are going to make government services and whatever efficient by streamlining operations, collapsing parastatals, collapsing some state departments that have been overthrown with the times, you understand? Then the first thing I think we have to do, just like any organization, is first clean house. You see what Moses Kuria is talking about? Moses Kuria is saying that we have civil servants who, because they know they're permanent and pensionable, who don't even show up for work. So do we need to just stick on the permanent and pensionable because it's something that has always been? Because even him is trying to address the wage bill. So he's saying, if this permanent and pensionable is what makes you redundant, let's go to performance contracts. Let's go to contractual.
Okay.
You know? So, and what he's trying to do before we even talk about how many CASs we need is, first of all, is there a need for certain state departments? Is there a need for CASs also is a question. As we approach Labor Day and with this debate on the national wage bill and the president saying that we need to live within our means, even at a time when doctors are on strike, on the issue of intern doctors and how much they should be paid, and the declaration is that the government cannot afford to pay them a single cent more than the 70,000 shillings. Yet, this proposal will be before his desk on Tuesday next week, a day before Labor Day. And it will be interesting to see how the president balances between living within our means and signing into law a bill that will allow him to appoint up to 50 CASs who are going to cost the country 500 million shillings every year. Interesting. Now, before we come to the end of this conversation, there's another interesting headline here that I'm seeing, and this is on a bill on sexual offenders, and I know this is close to your heart. Yes. So the fight against sexual offenses involving children and vulnerable groups has received a major boost after rights societies and parliamentarians launched the push to amend the law. Kindly take us through the kind of proposals and the need for this new law as we come to the end of the conversation. So first of all, you know, the Sexual Offences Act has been, when it was drafted, we were in a different time zone. We were literally in the past. So certain things were not really considered and thought of because at that time they did not appear as problems. So for instance, issues as grooming of children was not an offense, is not an offense, and it was not considered because for one reason or another in the past, we didn't have that culture. Kindly elaborate on that issue. So grooming is when you take a child, anyone below the age of 18, and you prepare them. You prepare them for sexual activities under their age. I don't know how to say that.
Like you actively recruit them.
You're actively recruiting them, for instance, into pornography. Or you're actively recruiting them into going to sex parties. Or you're actively recruiting them to marry them off. You know? We never used to have those things in the past, because in the past, children were children. If you're under 18, you're under 18, you're a child, you are treated like a child, right? But now, even the way some parents are bringing up their children, without either without them knowing or knowingly, they are grooming their children to be sexually abused by their peers. And that's one thing, for instance, that was not there and now is going to be considered an offense. Someone might ask, what is grooming? For instance, having a child take off their clothes and you are taking photos of them and trying to convince them that if you touch yourself like this or you do this, that's grooming. You are introducing them into a space that they don't even comprehend because they're children. So you as an adult who knows what you're doing, you're actually grooming that child. So I want to just present some of the things that were not there and that are now there. And then in the past, we didn't have social media. We didn't have smartphones. We didn't have devices that would record, anyone can use to record and do things. Now we are subjected with those devices, with those things. So what does that mean? That means that the pornography that used to be there, where someone would actually have to come take your child, take them into a studio and film a pornographic thing, now they just need to be in your house, in your space and do it. So how do we respond to that in terms of now the Sexual Offences Act? So we also didn't have, in the past, and I thank God because when I was younger, like in my early 20s, you can imagine if every other boy that I had a relation with had now photos of me and them, how that would play in these times when they would have to share them and now say, oh, now Senator Gloria, I dated her, look, we were together in this swimming pool, whatever, because that is something that we are being subjected where when children and teenagers are being teenagers, somehow they are being punished in their adult years by someone coming back now with your nude photos or whatever. Those are instances that were not anticipated, and we are trying now to ensure that revenge porn, which is a thing where you break up with someone and they had secretly recorded you because they want to hurt you or get back to you. They share images and videos of you in the public space. That we are tightening the nose on that. The issue of pornographic material, the issue of taking photos of someone without consent, the issue of grooming children, and one important thing that for me that speaks in that Sexual Offences Act is the fact that you have repeat offenders who are still in the judicial process in their several cases elsewhere, who are now out and about without the knowledge of the public, carrying out new offenses. How do you deal with that? Remember when we had femicide? Not when we have it even now. Remember when we had the issue of Airbnb and now the femicide was brought to the forefront. And there was one offender, the criminal, who apparently had been reported more than 3 times, but no one knew.
Okay.
So having a register, once convicted as a sexual offender, a register that is public for everyone to access. Then, even as an employer, I'm looking for a driver, I'm looking for a caregiver, I would know this is a sexual offender. Do I really think that this person should come and now take care of children in a nursery school?
So the proposal is to have a list made public of all sexual
One of the
offences.
proposals in the Sexual Offences Act is to, because currently there is a register that is accessible to very few people. There is a register of sexual offenders, but the proposal is to have that register public, one. The second thing is that to make grooming illegal and punishable by law. The other thing is that online SGBV, because you can sexually assault someone physically, but you can also sexually offend someone online. Because, for instance, I saw a respectable leader post a photo of their daughter, and I saw several comments of people saying, this is a teenager, this is not an adult, this is a person I can have sex with. That is a red flag, because a person who goes there to type there and write those things, that in itself should be punishable, because what you're doing is that you are implying that even knowing that this is a child, you have the will and you are outrightly saying you are going to, if given a chance, sexually harass this person. So, and also, in spaces, Fred, including here, we don't have safeguarding policies against sexual harassment, both for the man and for the woman. And if you look at the matatu industry, the public transport space, women are sexually harassed. It is bad, Fred. You're going to board a matatu, someone has groped you. You can't do anything about it, they laugh. It's not punishable. It's difficult to collect evidence. It's difficult to... So we are trying to create a sort of regulation within there where the employer somehow has duty of care. Okay. Because then if something happens, if I own this business and something happens to you that you are sexually harassed within my confines and they find out that the duty of care which has been imposed on me as an employer, I did not take my responsibility, then it's not only the criminal act but also the person responsible for that establishment. In that situation, then you have matatu owners will be very careful. Okay. On who they employ, because you see it will be like, hey, I was harassed in your matatu.
How far are we in as far as processing these amendments? So
the draft is there, and what I want to thank Cradle, because it's Cradle, there's an organization called Cradle that brought legislators together to run through the proposed amendments that are in the bill, so that we can be able to tell you, this one, forget about it. This one include. There were some issues that were very legitimate in terms of even consideration of the intersex community, but we had to logically think through them and say, okay, this is going to be impossible. Because then if you start accommodating a specific group with specific needs, then you might have to also consider other specific groups who the public don't want to consider, who have not been legitimized by law. So they were passing it through legislators so that legislators can give a feel of how possible is it for these amendments to go. So I believe the next step would be that it will be fronted through the internal systems of Parliament by a member or by a committee. And after that, then it takes up the stages of moving up the chain from first reading, second reading, and then it will be voted for. Okay. Yeah.
Well, it is a very interesting conversation.
But it's a warning shot for people who have been getting away with sexual offenses. Your days are numbered.
Interesting conversation right here. We've been having very interesting conversations this morning with the Senator Gloria Roba. One of them is the launch or the official opening of the Bunge Towers. They call it modern, ultra-modern, 26-story Bunge Towers right next to Parliament buildings. And shortly we'll be joining my colleagues Apollo Kamau and Liz Mutuku to bring us up to speed with what's happening from that end. But even as we anticipate that, editorial comment this morning has to do with a proposal to increase terms for elected leaders from your colleague Senator Samson Cherargei. And probably, as a final shot, what do you think of that?
I don't support that.
You don't support it?
I don't support it. I don't support it. I feel, in fact, now we are trying to move civil servant from permanent and pensionable to contract. Why are you trying to prolong contracts of elected leaders? Okay. If you can't deliver within the 5 years that you're given, you are never going to deliver even if they give you 10 years. So it is just upon us to figure out, you are there for a term, deliver, and then the people will decide to elect you again or not. If the term is 2 terms, for instance, governors and the president, exit at your high and move so that the young people like us can get. If Gladys Wanga did not exit from women rep, some people would never be women reps. Exit so that now even us we enter, even us when we exit to achieve wengine. But extending the terms for me is a no-no. Just for the viewers who are always trying to seek audience with me and some who I give, if I am unable to give you a space where you can wait before you see me in my office, don't blame me.
Elewa tu.
Our offices don't have waiting rooms. It is not our fault.
And they also cannot catch you crossing the road because you'll be using the tunnel.
And it is very difficult for us to give you tea. Logistics have become difficult with the new building. Please, samea waheshimiwa.
Wow, interesting. It'll be interesting, an interesting change for members of Parliament. Thank you so much, Senator Gloria Roba, for the very interesting conversation this morning. This has been a morning cafe, and straight to editorial comment. Now, the renewed debate on the length of terms of elected leaders, including the president, raises significant questions about the motivation behind such proposals. Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei has already drafted a bill seeking to extend the current 5-year mandate to 7 years for elected leaders, including governors, MPs, and the president. It's worth noting that this isn't the first time such proposals have been put forward. Only a week ago, an excited industrialist jokingly suggested that the current president should be allowed to be in office for 25 years. Similar motions have surfaced in the recent past, including Fafi MP Salah Yakub's 2022 motion advocating for a 7-year presidential term. While these propositions may appear innocent on the surface, many pundits and observers are rightfully cautious about their underlying motives. Former IEBC Commissioner Rosalina Kombe rightly points out the potential dangers associated with tinkering with the presidential terms and limits. She suggests that altering these parameters could effectively reset the clock for incumbents, allowing them to circumvent existing term constraints and extend their stay in power. It is essential to remain vigilant and discern the true intentions behind such proposals. Are they genuine attempts to enhance governance and stability, or are they veiled maneuvers to consolidate power and perpetuate incumbency by some elected leaders? We must interrogate the motives behind proposed constitutional amendments and advocate for measures that safeguard against potential abuses of power. Let us remain woke to the implications of such proposals and actively participate in shaping the future of our democracy. And that is our editorial comment this morning. And now straight to my colleague Apollo Kamau, who's going to bring us up to speed with what's happening at the official opening of the ultra-modern Bunge Towers, a 26-story building that will be officially opened by the president today. A very good morning to you, Apollo. What is happening where you are?
Good morning, Indimuli. We are from Parliament buildings, and as you can see behind me, this is the talk of the town, Bunge Towers, which in a few minutes' time will be opened by President William Ruto, who is expected to arrive here in a few. Now, this has been a long journey, a journey of 14 years at a cost of 9.2 billion shillings to the taxpayer for this building to stand the way it's standing. There has been a lot of questions, a lot of curiosity on this building, and just to give you a picture of what we expect when the president arrives here, he will be taken through various rooms, starting from the ground floor. He will also be taken to committee rooms. He will be taken to the gym. He will be taken to various key offices which will accommodate members of parliament. Now, the first phase of members of parliament has already moved in, and I'm told by parliamentary staff here, the first batch came from Continental House. Some are also expected to come from Harambee Plaza, which is near here, others from KICC. They will be moving into the new building, which, according to the Speaker, given this building has attracted a lot of questions, offers members of Parliament the comfort and the luxury to operate. And also, just a stretch from the other side, there is a tunnel which will allow members of Parliament to access the new Bunge Towers without any stress or any public commotion or harassment, to be able to execute their businesses. Now, this idea of this building started way back in 2009 when it was floated by former Speaker Kenneth Marende in order to accommodate the huge number of MPs that came with the 2010 Constitution. And therefore, work started in 2010, but not until 14 years later, given it was slated to complete in 2014, not until 14 years later when it's now ready for occupation. So it's a very huge day, not just for members of Parliament, but also for the leadership of the House, which has faced a lot of questions. A lot of members, a section of them like Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei, has raised a lot of questions on the expenditure, saying they want to be shown the certificate of completion of this building. The Speaker hitting back, calling him negative and saying those who are criticizing this contract risk facing the Powers and Privileges Committee. So it's been a long journey, and what we expect in the speeches today, of course we do expect a lot of defense from parliamentary leadership, and also it will be interesting to hear what the president will say about this new venture Now, I have my colleague Liz Mutuku, who is on the other side, speaking to one member of Parliament. I can see she's on standby, and I will be handing you over to her. Over to you, Liz.
Thank you so much, Apollo Kamau, from the other side of this building and parliamentary buildings. And of course, the way you've explained, the art of nation, Bunge Tower is expected to be officially opened by President William Ruto, but with a lot of questions from members of parliament on whether the building has met standards. At least I was privileged to be in some of the offices, and I don't know what they will have to say about this, because some of members which I've interacted with, they are so contented with the room, where else others have questions regarding the home offices which they've been allocated compared to the offices they had previously. We've also had Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei insisting that this would not have happened at a time like today, but they would have tallied a bit to ensure that everything is in place, something which was hugely condemned by Speaker of National Assembly Moses Masika Wetangula, saying that this is ultra-modern building which will accommodate at least 329 members of parliament. And also this comes when there are questions on quality of the equipment which will be used in this building. But then I'll be speaking to Makali Molu, who was here since initiation of this project, and he will be telling us whether, according to him and every other member of parliament, they think it has met their standards. Thank you so much, Moesh, for giving me an opportunity to speak to you this morning. I know you have a lot of it's a good day. Let me start from there. But I know there are questions regarding this. I would like to ask whether, according to you and every other member, your opinion, does it meet the standards or rather expectations?
Yeah, thank you very much. As you have said, today is a great day for members of parliament and the parliamentary staff, because this has been a long journey. Since the 10th Parliament up to now, that's around 2010 to today, which is about 14 years, the issue of construction of this magnificent structure, the designs were done around 2010, around 2011, the works started. So we are talking about more than 10 years of implementation. And all said and done, it has been too long, and all of us have actually been complaining about the time it has taken. So that's why we are saying the day is a big day for us, and more so when you look at the structure and how long it has taken. Members have expressed some concerns about some of
inarudi kwangu ama naweza toka.
And I think during our the last week, when the speaker was communicating to the House,
natoka,
he did indicate that it is not 100% complete. There are some areas which need to be completed. But he also said that it's important we occupy the structure so that from there then we can finalize whatever is remaining. And the way I look at it is that the issues of quality will be determined by, because we have been having engineers supervising the work. We have been having accountants who have been providing the resources. And I'm sure at the end of the day, the Auditor General, who is mandated to do an audit of the whole project, will be able to give a report to our Public Accounts Committee, which will look at the report. So I don't want to say, in terms of financial management, in terms of quality of work, I think we have authorities who can determine that. But members are saying, just from a layman's point of view, some feel like it doesn't meet the expectation. But what I would say is, for me, from where I sit, and having been here for the last now 11 years, when I joined Parliament, we have been promising 2 years we'll be occupying the structure. I've been here for the last 11 years, and I've still not occupied my office. So, because I'm not likely to come back again to Parliament after this 13th Parliament, whatever time I'll be able to sit in that structure, I'll just say hallelujah to God, because I've been looking to sit in for the last 10 years. I've not managed,
You've been allocated an office here.
Yeah, I've been allocated an office, but I've not occupied the office because some group occupied last week. Others will be occupying around 1st July. But I've been allocated an office and I intend to move in either next week or the other week. So I'm looking forward to getting to my office and see how it looks like. I've not seen it.
Not seen it.
So I will not be able to say there is a big office or a small office. But let me say this, from my experience, when I joined Parliament the first term, I was sitting in an office which is less than 10 by 10 with no window. It's only a door, no window. Then during my second term, I moved to a bigger office in 6th floor, where I share that office with my cleaner, with my PA, and with my secretary. So we sit in the same 4-ward room. So I understand now they have done an office where a member of Parliament could sit in one room, and the other member sits in the other room, and in the middle you have the secretariat. That is very important because, members of Parliament, we are like doctors. When you are attending to the people, you don't want everybody to listen to what you are discussing with your voters. So I think even though some are saying it might not be an expectation, some of us who have walked this long journey, we think it will be an improvement.
So according to you, is a progress to the right direction?
At least I will have an office where I can sit alone, and when you come to see me, we can have a chat without my PA and my secretary walking out of the office to allow them space to talk to me. To me, that is better than what we have been going through.
Thank you so much, Mheshimiwa. We'll be hearing from you.
The other things like issues of audit, we expect that the Auditor General, the engineers will be able to do a good job to determine whether we got value for money. I will not be there. I don't think I have what it takes to comment on that now.
Thank you so much for that. Of course, that has been Makalimulu, but also I would like to hear from a junior member of Parliament from this space to tell me how they think of this, whether they've already occupied their office and whether they find it standard. Thank you so much, Mwesh, also for finding a minute to speak to us at TV47. I know many members have been allocated offices in the new tower. Have you gotten your space and how do you find it? We know there are members who have raised concerns regarding this and what they say it has not met standards.
First of all, I must say that this has been a project that has been long forthcoming from the year 2008. It is a project that has 26 floors. It is a project that is going to accommodate about 331 members, which essentially means not all of us will be accommodated in this particular facility. It is also going to help in terms, it has about 26 meeting rooms, which means the committees will not now be going to hotels in the various parts of the city, and even sometimes not even getting that opportunity to be able to do the works that we are expected by the public to be able to do. Now, the offices here, to the best of my view, is fair. I will not say it's an overly exaggerated or very lashy, but I'll say it's a fair office, and I think it is very good because it's bringing most of us members of Parliament into this particular building where we are all be able to, if you want to meet me, if I want to meet my own voters, they have a place where they can be able to find me. We have central registry, central security around this place. So to me, I think it is worth, yes, it's a good thing. I think it is good to the best of my understanding.
According to you, it has met your expectations as a member of Parliament?
Yes. As I said, fairly. It has fairly met my expectations.
What do you mean by fairly, Mheshimiwa? It says that it has met your expectations or not?
Well, I think the spacing is not as what we expected sufficiently enough as it were in my case. You know, we also had, most of the members of Parliament had offices also maybe in several other buildings around town, and those spaces were even more spacious than what we are finding here. So that's why I said fairly, we have an office that it may not meet the expectations, especially for individual members. But for the leadership, like the chairman of committees, have quite very, very spacious offices. So on the overview, we celebrate that this iconic building that is going to be open today. I think it's a milestone. It has taken so long, but in the first year of the Kenya Kwanza government, we have now been able to have this building open.
Thank you so much. I'll be hearing from many other members of Parliament as we continue and as we wait for President to officially commission this building, but also the questions which have been asked by various members of Parliament, we also be expecting to see whether the Speaker and every other person, every other leader, especially PSC, will be commenting regarding this. Back to you in studio.
Yes, thank you so much, my colleague Liz Mutuku, and also Apollo Kamau, who've been bringing us up to speed with what's happening at the Bunge Tower. This is an ultra-modern 26-story building next to Parliament buildings, which will now be occupied by the elected and other members of both the National Assembly and the Senate, and the President is expected to officiate at that official opening today. Time now for a break, but don't go too far. Morning Cafe continues with more discussions after this.
Nilikutengenezea kitu.
From different worlds, come a trio with a shared destiny.
Na safari hii katika Mfahamu Kiongozi tutakuletea viongozi aina mbalimbali.
Nikuwe na nisani kama 10 na pia nikuwe menua minibus. Minibus nikoniwa.
Kushinda unaangalia simu ya mzee, soma Biblia ama ingia kwa washroom ujisugue mpaka nimetoa hivi.
I don't know whether any of my children would want to get into the political field. Sijajua bado.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30 kuendelea.
Join us on a journey through the concrete jungles and rising skylines, where every beam, every nail tells a story of progress and vision.
In every aspect of life, you know, you have to look at several dynamics.
From groundbreaking.
Nowadays with the tech, you can check on different websites or you check online and you can see some inspiration. So at least that one would be a direction already. I'll know like what kind of style you're going for.
To finishing touches, witness the dedication of the hard-working teams who bring these ambitious dreams to reality. The Realtor, Tuesdays at 6:30 p.m.
Na safari hii
Right, a very good morning to you. Welcome back. This is Morning Cafe. My name is Stanley Nyiringite. Just a reminder for you, we're giving you live coverage of the official opening of the Bunge Towers, where President William Ruto will be there. Our reporters Apollo Kamau and Elizabeth Mutuku are there. We'll be giving you all that coverage, so stick around for that. And even as you continue, just sticking around to know what time the President will be coming in. But even as we continue, it's a Thursday, giving you tips on what you need to know concerning matters, just giving you a whole legal aid. And today we're joined by Ruth Tanui. She's an advocate of the High Court. And today's conversation is something that most families and most domestic households really come to think about it when, as an afterthought. After one of the family members, and maybe even the father, passed away, or is on the verge of, let's say, the sickbed, and this topic comes on board, yes. The will. Oh, yes. But first off, introduce yourself kindly.
Okay. First, thank you for having me. Mm-hmm. I'm Ruth Tanui. I'm an advocate. I'm an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. I'm also the founder and managing partner of Ruth Tanui and Company Advocates.
Right.
Yes.
Tell us what basically is in a will, and what really is a will.
Okay, so a will basically has been, the Succession Act has defined the will as a declaration of your assets and how you'd want them to be distributed. So that's basically a simple definition of a will. Just you listing all your assets and the beneficiaries, how you want your estate to be distributed. Now when you pass on, yes, upon your death. Yes, that's the best definition of a will. And as you've said, unfortunately, most people don't consider it as a priority. Most, especially in African traditions, we see it as an omen, like a bad omen. By the time, it's like you're tempting fate.
It's your wishing. It's like you're wishing for it to happen.
Yeah. So when you bring it up, it's a topic that most people, it has a lot of opinions upon it. But unfortunately, like for your car, you insure your car. Of course, you don't want to have an accident, but you still go ahead to insure your car. You have health insurance because you know, and death is something that we know. It's something that's going to happen. It's a matter of when. So that's why a will is basically you having control of how your assets that you have worked hard on can be distributed upon your death. Yes.
And largely we do have quite a number of men having the wills. And the whole conversation, and the elephant in the room today would be, why is it that we're having less ladies and a few number of ladies writing these wills? I mean, you as an example, is it something that you've really thought about and say, let me write a will, by the way, and draft as from your profession? Do you get a number of ladies coming to you and saying, I'd love to write a will?
No, unfortunately, a will, I think from tradition, because a will is how you will distribute your assets, and from back then, many people, like men are the ones considered to be the ones who are supposed to write the will. But women right now, they are acquiring assets. Women have assets. Women, you might be a single parent and you'd want, in an unfortunate situation where you pass on before your kids are adults, you'd want to have a guardian, to appoint a guardian who will take care of your children. So at least you'll have that control to appoint a person who you trust, because if you don't, it's court that will appoint for you. So that's why, but most women, they're coming, a lot of women, because I've written wills for compared to men, the percentage is higher lesser for women, and not a lot of women write wills. So, and I think it's just because of, I don't think people, most people consider that it's supposed to be, especially if you're married, for instance, it's your husband is the one who's supposed to write the will. But remember, if you have acquired property, a will is how your property is supposed to be distributed. Your husband cannot write if you have, say, land that is written under your name, your husband cannot write in his will that this land should be distributed this way. It has to be you, yourself, that when you have acquired property. So women nowadays, women now are starting, I can say most women are starting now to get into writing wills. But it's still something that not a lot of women have. I don't think it's something that a lot of women have considered. But it's important, especially if you're a single, for instance, if you're a single parent, because they're saying it's a man, but for you don't have that man, let's say, for instance, the man is not in the picture to help you to write that will. So you're the one supposed to take that responsibility. Because right now we're having quite a number of homes that are headed by single moms. Yes. And that's why even now it's at this time that I think it's just the way we have even started by this conversation, saying that a lot of people don't, even generally, even without putting the gender, don't consider wills as an important factor. Yeah, most people don't consider. But now, right now, it's something that someone should think about, because, things happen. Death is something that we are certain it will happen. It's just a matter of when. So that's why it's something that people should actually, especially if you're a single parent, because you would want your child to live. If you have properties, or even you'd want your children to be taken care of by people you care about. And a will is the only way you can control that. If you don't have a will, it will be hard, because now court will have to come in. Yes. Right. And back at home, wherever you're watching us from, you can always be part of this conversation. Call us live, and Wakili will be answering all those questions that you have concerning drafting a will. 0795-045864 is the number. 22047 is the SMS number to SMS line to text us on the same. Now, for some, because you're saying for someone who's really thinking about drafting this will, what do they need to know when they come to you? They say, Wakili, help me draft this will. And they don't really know offhand all the properties that they probably have. Help us understand. Yes, so another thing first, the Act has stipulated how it does. You might write a will, but you don't follow the law of the Kenyan laws. Okay. That will someone can object to it. Especially, for instance, if you have, so that's why when writing a will, you have to factor in, the first thing first, you have to be of sound mind. because that's something that is considered. And then you have to list all your assets and all your beneficiaries and how you would want those, how you would want now each beneficiary, how you'd want them to get each property, how you'd want it to be distributed. So the first thing is you have to list all your assets. The purpose of a will also is just to ensure, because some people pass on and you even don't know where some of the assets that they owned. So that's why you have to, normally we start by telling the person to list all their assets and all their beneficiaries, then now, and how you would want them to be distributed. And then you have to also choose an executor who will execute the will. And then it also, another important factor is it has to be witnessed by 2 people who are present. Like if I'm the testator, my witnesses, I have to be present while signing the will. And a beneficiary should not be a witness. But in circumstances that, a beneficiary cannot, but in situations where they become a witness, they have to also have other 2 witnesses to witness their signature.
Interesting. So for example, let's say it's the father, and he wants to get into the whole drafting the will. So first of all, how many of the dependents are within this will? Let's say he probably has, let's say 3 children and 1 wife. How far can this will extend? Can it also extend to the extended family, to probably his brothers, maybe the sisters, or let's say they're also grandchildren?
Yeah.
How far can it extend?
So that's why a will now gives you the authority to determine how the people you would want to include. So you can include, like, you may find when there's a child the father adopted who's not a biological child, they can include them in the will. You may find there's a charity organization that they donate to, they might include it in the will. So the one that you can't have control over is now where you don't have a will, because court has to come in. And under the Law of Succession Act, the law considers the immediate family. That's why even writing a will now will help you to include, you have the freedom to include any person you would want. It has no control. The problem now is if you discriminate, they have said you have 3 children and maybe you put in only 2 children, you leave out 1 child.
So for example, you have this father has 3 children, and you're telling us that these 3 children cannot be the witnesses in this signing of this will.
Yeah, because they are beneficiaries.
They're beneficiaries.
Yes.
So it will need that this father bring in, let's say, maybe for the aunts who are not beneficiaries to come and witness, or friends.
Yes, or most instances people draft their wills in a law firm with their lawyer. So that's why you find most of them, the witnesses will be lawyers. The lawyers now in the law firm. It has to be a party who is not a beneficiary. The party just has to be a person who is of sound mind, of an adult, but not a beneficiary. But the Act has stated that in instances where a beneficiary is signed, let's say one of the child signs the will, other 2 witnesses have to be added, not to witness now that signature.
Right.
Who are independent.
All right. Yes. So Wakili, we spoke to a few Kenyans just to get to understand how better they grasp this whole knowledge of drafting a will and maybe the kind of questions that they may have concerning the same. Let's listen in to that as then we continue.
Okay.
Mambo ya will hapa Taita bado watu hawajazingatia sana mambo ya written will, lakini oral will, yani kujua tu niko na watoto wangapi, kama niko na shamba kwa sheria kimila lazima kila mtoto apate sehemu ya shamba, hata ikiwa kubwa ikiwa ndogo kiasi gani, lazima kila mtoto apate sehemu yake, ili kama akioa na akitaka kujenga basi awe na uhuru wa kujenga mahali pake, akingojea kurithishwa kikamilifu ili apate title deed. Lakini mashamba mengi hapa Taita title deed ziko na wazee. Hata kwangu mimi hivi sasa title deed yangu niko na lakini
wewe unayo written will?
Written will siko nayo, lakini ninapanga kuifanya.
Na mambo ya will, nafikiri siku hizi sisi wa mama, kwa sababu ya kuwa tunaambiwa tukue sawa na wanaume, na kama ni urithi turithishe sawa na wanaume, tushapata mafundisho. Na most times mila zetu zinatua sisi wasichana, kwa sababu anasema urithi ni wanaume peke yake. kwa sababu msichana sie alijulikana ukikuwa unaolewa. Sasa siku hizi si wote wanaolewa, so huwa naona will ikiweko, wale wazazi huwa wanakuja wanakaa na wale watoto wao wa kike. Mimi nimesema kama ni shamba mahali fulani, nikikufa wewe ndo utarithi lile shamba, lakini hiyo hajasema na wale wengine wa kiume wakasikia.
Pengine wewe kama mama uko na yako kupanga kurithisha watoto wako.
Bio will sijaandika bado, lakini huwa tuko na ile ambayo tunasema ndio mnaitaga ni oral, ile ya kuongea tu hivi, lakini ile written kabisa bado sijaamua kabisa.
Mpango ipo?
Mpango iko. Maana
niko na wasichana 3 na kijana mmoja. Sasa mimi nikaandikisha, urithi wangu nikaandika kijana wangu, kwa sababu yeye ndio kichwa. Sasa nikaandika huyo kijana wangu, ondoo wote ni wangu, lakini sasa unajua mwanamume ndio kichwa. Sasa hiyo ndio nilifanya uamuzi wangu. Mimi nilivyo hapa na biashara yangu na watoto wangu, nilidivorce na mume wangu. So nikatafuta mahali. Kabla sijatafuta mahali, nilielezea watoto wangu, mimi nikifariki leo ama kesho nisizikie kwa mume wangu, nitapelekwa mahali mtu anaweza kuniweka ama mnipeleke makaburini. So kule kungangana na watoto wangu, kijana akaniambia, ai mami, badala ya kwenda kuzikiwa makaburini, ukipata pahali ununue alafu nikuweke hapo. So nikatafuta mahali na nikatafuta uamuzi wangu. Nilipopata mahali nikatafuta uamuzi wangu, nikamwambia kijana wangu, hata nikifariki leo hapo ndo utaniweka. So hivyo ndo tu niliamua na. Lakini nikamwambia kijana, hata nikienda, kwa sababu naweza enda anytime, hawa watoto usipia ni dada zako, usiwache hivi hivi, lazima uwe kitu kimoja.
I have a written will ambayo niliachiwa na mama.
Hiyo ni ya mama ambaye vipi yako?
Hata mimi niko kwa mikakati, kwa sababu nilipata mfano kutoka kwake. Mimi nimetoka kwa familia ya watoto 6 na mimi ni mzaliwa wa 5. Niko na ndugu zangu wa kiume pale mbele. But sometimes according to maisha vile yako na vile unabeba mzazi, ili happen mama kaniandika mimi. Kama next of kin. Mimi vile ninavyojipanga, manake haki ni ya watoto wote 6. Nitawaganyia yao na mimi nipate sehemu yangu. Pia watoto wangu pia vile mfano wa mamangu uendelee pia kwa watoto. Lakini ni muhimu sana mtu kuwa na wili yake. Ile wili tuliyoachiwa na mama iko na jina.
That is what Kenyans are saying. What are you saying out there? 0795-045-864 is the number to call us live and ask all those questions regarding drafting a will. From matters drafting a will, when we started, I had informed you that we'll be crossing over to Bunge Towers, but not now, but in a few. President William Ruto, being told, has arrived. He will be unveiling the Bunge Towers, and we'll be telling you more details on that. We'll be giving you more coverage. Elizabeth Mutuku as well as Apollo Kamau are there. Right now, though, let's go. All right, I'm being told that actually let's cross over and listen in briefly to what is happening. Live pictures there from Bunge Towers, unveiling of the same by President William Ruto, giving you more coverage of the same later on. Groundbreaking construction of the same. Journey beginning all the way from 15th of January 2015, the first of the construction. More details coming on that. Before we cross over back, let's continue with the conversation of the day. It's a Thursday, giving you legal tips, and before we actually cut short by we continue. Had Vox Pops and just listening to what people are saying, men as well as women, on the same and different issues arose here, as matters divorce and the oral bits, and I'd love you to tell us more about this. Okay. The kind of conditions. Can I actually say that mimi niko na watoto watatu na wewe utachukua hii, wewe utachukua hii, and that's done?
Yes, and you can do either an oral or a written will, but an oral will has conditions, just like the written will. For an oral will, it has to be at least have been made 3 months, at least 3 months prior to your death. But for there's an exemption for military officers.
I mean that's interesting. Before you actually get into the exemption, 3 months prior to your death.
Like at least minimum.
At least.
Yeah. So you might have made it 5 years ago, but at least it has to be the minimum 3 months.
So that's like telling a human being you should have known your death should be at this time and plan it prior.
No, I don't think, no, that's not what I'm trying to mean. It has to be, if, let's say, for instance, I make an oral will today, God forbid, then you pass on a week later, that wouldn't, it has to be made at least 3 months. The minimum will be 3 months. So you'd have made it even 5 years ago, 1 year ago, but the minimum is 3 months.
Do you feel like that's a bit unfair? If I started to plan for it right now, and then I pass away again, God forbid, before the 3 months hit, so it becomes null and void? Yeah, it becomes null and void, unless you are a KDF officer, military officer, who's on the line of duty. Do you feel like they're the ones who are exempted? Do you feel like that's a bit unfair when it comes to the Constitution? I think it's because of the factors they consider. Mm-hmm. They consider you have to be of mental stability while doing the will. So it's considered if you're doing a will out of circumstances, you may not be doing it you may not be very sober while doing it. Yeah. Like for instance, right now, if maybe you're told people are being shot out there, and then for you, you're this is the time I should. You see now that one is not considered mentally you aren't sound while making it. Yes. All right. I think that's I'm just giving an assumption. I think that's something that they have considered. It was considered, yes. Interesting. Okay, so be it as it may, I'm pretty sure some would feel it's a little maybe unfair on the same bit, something that many people actually may not know. But then still on the whole oral bit of it, I'd love to know, so I have said that I have, let's say, 3 children, and child A gets this just orally. Years later, how does my oral statement is proved in a court of law? Yeah, because now that's another requirement. Apart from the 3 months, it's supposed to be 2 witnesses. So that's the purpose of the 2 witnesses. Because even the law normally states, for instance, now me and you, we are witnessing a will for person X. Then now we are now the witnesses. We are the ones now who will confirm what the person X said. So we'll say now this person said the property in Kantafu goes to child number 1. We are the ones now who will enforce it. So even sometimes, even when there's disagreement, for you felt he said no, it will go to child number 2. It will just be invalidated to that extent. The rest, which both of you are in agreement with as the witnesses, it will be enforced. One of the ladies from Taita Taveta said, well, she already said that my elder son is the one who's going to get a property, this particular property. So does that again mean, because when you started saying you've witnessed a few ladies coming to you to actually draft the will. So does it mean now that for most of these ladies, they prefer to do, or rather they're actually doing oral wills rather than the written ones? Yeah. I think that, but not even before we go to that, I've noticed something she said. She said she has 3 children, 1 male and 2 females. And she said she only wrote, bequeathed her property to the male child. First, that is a discrimination. It's not allowed. You can't, that's how I've told, I said you can't discriminate. Because what happens, if you have written a will, it doesn't mean that you don't go to court.
You have to go to, you apply for grant, it's called grant of probate, just to enforce it. You just go per the person's will, but it has to be enforced. Then it's gazetted for 30 days. So the two daughters can object it. And court, the moment they know you are one of the dependents, now you're the daughters, you prove that to court. Court will, it will vary the will. You can't, that's even the first place you should start. You can't, while writing the will, you can't discriminate some of your dependents.
There's something you've said, so after she's done, now a huge advice even for her. So she's done it orally, and she said, my elder son is going to get it, and I'm bequeathing my property to the elder son. So how do you actually now solidify this oral statement that you said, despite the fact that there are actually two other witnesses? There's something you've mentioned, a whole act of the gazettement of the same. Yes. Tell us about that.
Yeah, because you have to apply for, it's normally, it's called grant of probate. You apply to court. Stating if it's a written will, you attach the will. You say this person passed on, the appointed person X as the executor. So it's gazetted, just for anyone who is opposing it. The same thing now even for the oral will, it's the same thing, you'll apply, and then the two witnesses will put in a sworn-in affidavit stating what the deceased, the person who was passed on, stated. So now after now it's put on Kenya Gazette, it normally runs for 30 days. So when it's put...
Both written and oral?
For both, yeah, for both.
Okay.
Yeah, it runs for 30 days. And then if you're objecting it, you make an objection in court. You file an objection objecting the will because it's discriminatory. You are a dependent and you're not included. Court looks at it. So of course you bring proof, birth certificate to show that this was your mother. Like for instance, the one now, and you aren't included in the will. Court will vary the terms of the will to ensure you have included all your dependents.
Right. So in the 30 days, for example, because we had a hypothetical of a father, he has 3 children and a wife. So these 3 children, one of them maybe was left out, or maybe was actually included. Let's use a hypothetical. So he or she was included, but then he or she feels like I don't want your will. I don't want to be part of to be a beneficiary. Can that be a ground to have this person go to court and say, no, I don't want to be part of this will?
Yeah, you can still do an objection on the grounds that you don't want to be part of the will. Yeah, because that's the purpose of being gazetted. Then now you make, with court, you make any objection, and then the court now will make a decision based and hear you out. What is your reason for objecting? And then the other party also weighs in, and then court makes a decision. Yes.
Right. So, for example, a couple got married, and let's say after 3 years of their marriage, they, both of them either, decided to write a will. And you'll also be telling us how, again, that works if the mom and also the father, write separate wills. And they live, let's say, for the next 20 years, and they still have that will that they had 20 years back. What happens? Is this will supposed to be updated regularly? Because it will be assumed that for the 20 years, they'll have amassed quite a number of property that they didn't indicate 20 years back.
Yes, that's why you started by asking what should someone know when they want to write a will.
Yeah.
The important thing, that's why we normally advise use an advocate, because the advocate will ensure you incorporate everything that you're legally required. So one of the things that you are legally required is to regularly update your will. Well, even you may find your executor, the person you appointed, maybe, God forbid, passes on even before you. Let's say you'll have to amend your will to include, you appoint another executor. Or maybe you have said you start acquiring other properties, or even maybe when you're writing, maybe you had 2 kids and now you have 4 kids. So you have to always update your will. It's advised you always update your will. But not for instance...
After how long?
Like when circumstances change. Now, for instance, if you acquire a new property, you change it. Maybe maybe you adopt a child and you feel this person should be part of your will. You can update. It's regular. When something changes and you feel this should be included in your will.
So, for example, this couple had, let's say, for the 20 years, and they updated it until, let's say, the 15th year. But then they have not. It hasn't been updated for the past 5 years. When it is before the court. Will the court be looking at the latest, or rather the will that is at the moment, the one that was updated, let's say, 5 years ago, and in the 5 years that since it was last updated, let's say there were property that was accrued, maybe a child was adopted and all that, circumstances arose. What will happen in such a kind of a
where
case?
circumstances arose, but it wasn't included in the will.
Yes.
Because now you see, now let's say these couples have passed on. Now, of course, now the family, they'll try now and go and you apply for grant of probate for the validity of the will. So now the people who weren't included can now object it. Remember, the only way court maybe can come in is now after it has been taken to court, when someone has applied for grant of probate, and once, because the normal circumstances you find, of course, the ones who are benefiting from that will want it to be executed the way it is. And then now, of course, the people now who are not included, and they can object to it. And then court now will vary it accordingly. Sadly, even we have situations where, even there's a case I know about, like, you go to, Kenya Gazette is placed and you don't object. It is assumed no one has objected, because you can't claim ignorance in court. You can't say that I didn't see the Kenya Gazette, I didn't know they put Kenya Gazette every Friday. So you can't use that as an excuse. So there haven't been instances where someone will, then now you come later on. That's when you find someone going to argue in court that they placed the Kenya Gazette, no one objected, so they have no ground of coming to object it at this point. But now, of course, if there's issues of fraud, court, of course, will reconsider it. Yes, so, and that's why it's just up to now the parties. Now, if the one that was written 20 years ago, if you go and the people who benefited, if they go to court and annex it and no one objects it, so it will mean now the other parties might object, or if for them, they would want but now that the will be invalidated, because now they can't, it has to be invalidated. Now it will become the person died intestate without a will.
Okay.
Yes.
Does also divorce apply to the circumstances that you're telling us? For example, this couple that I'd given a hypothetical, they got married 20 years ago. But then, now let's say they didn't actually reach the 20 years. They live, let's say for 10 years, and then they got a divorce. Before they got a divorce, they had already written a will, either of them or maybe both of them. So what happens in such kind of a case?
It's the same thing. If you don't update your will and you're divorced, the terms of your will are abided by. So if you didn't amend your will, the same thing happens. You have to, now the current wife, let's say the person remarried, or they can come and object it on those grounds. And then now court will hear them out. You can object now the will. The written will is stating that by the time this person had already divorced, you bring evidence to court, then court is now going to make a decision. Yes, it's the same thing. You have to just apply then an objection. When now it's when the person has applied for grant of probate, then the gazette is made. 30 days, you object it.
Right. On Facebook, Macau XOX asks, what if I leave out some of my property on the will?
Now, unfortunately, now that if you've left it and no one objects the validity of the will, now that's the situation where now your property will just, and let's say, for instance, none of your dependents know about it. That's now a situation where now nothing can be done. We have had situations by there where you find someone knows, when the person passes on, this person, well, maybe let's say for example, didn't have a will, but this person, my father had property in, let's say, Mavoko, but you don't know exactly where the property is. So that's why writing a will, you have to be specific. And if you leave out, it's to your own detriment as now the testator, the author of the will. Because now your properties, unless now other dependents knew about it, now by that one now will be dealt with intestate, because it wasn't included in the will. So administrators will be appointed by court.
Ah, okay.
Because with the will, you have the power to appoint an executor who you trust. But now if you don't have a will, administrators are appointed by court. Yes.
So far in your experience, what are some of the common mistakes that people oftenly make when it comes to drafting a will?
Yeah, the first one even is the one we have just talked about. They don't update their wills.
Yeah.
You don't update your will, and then others, they don't get legal advice. So for instance, if a will is not written, the way we have said you have to have two witnesses who are not beneficiaries, and if they are beneficiaries, there has to be another two people who witness that signature. So people make that mistake, and the moment now, if you write a will right now and it's witnessed by one person, that will, it's like you're just the same as the person who didn't write a will. Now it's invalidated, and then your estate is dealt with intestate. You died as though you didn't write a will. You didn't die testate. So that's one of the, and then the one I've said, not getting legal advice, and then the other thing is leaving out some properties. Those are some of the mistakes someone makes. Now, the moment you leave out, now you see that one now will be, I think it will now be up to fate Because then if you left it out, the only ones that can be dealt with are the ones that you listed in your will. Yeah, so it will be to your own detriment if there are properties that you didn't include in the will. And then the other mistake people make is leaving out some beneficiaries, some dependents, and now that invalidates the will. And then now the other thing also is now the one, like now for the oral will, you have to make sure, you know, they even from what we were watching, it's like they just said, that's what we have been saying. They have not specified specific people we have told about our oral will. You know, you can't just, now you see now it will be hard for it to know even which witnesses they had about the two, were there two witnesses, were there, you know.
So and what happens if it's a dispute in court and the two witnesses who are there at that time, you know, passed away probably? So that goes again to, they had to have signed the affidavit of they actually had you.
Yeah, they have to swear an affidavit now stating what they had you and what now they had you said about your distribution of your estate. So if the person passes on now, it's the same thing as a written will. Now it becomes, and if you didn't tell, maybe you didn't now maybe include another witness. Now that becomes now it should be invalidated.
One of the most important questions people will be asking right now is, I don't probably even have a job at the moment and all that. When should I, and probably I've just gotten married, it's a year plus. When is the right time though to start writing a will? Should you start thinking about writing a will when you have a family, or you know, someone as single as they are, mtu ni bachelor pale nje, can they even start thinking about writing a will? They don't have children at the moment. They don't really have beneficiaries at the moment as well. Should they also be thinking about this?
Yeah, I think they can just be maybe considering it, maybe looking at, but now you know the will, the way we have defined it at the beginning, it's you as like assigning your assets to beneficiaries, like your assets and how they are going to, how your estate will be distributed. So I think it will be hard if you don't have the assets. But now I normally say, like, even if you know, it doesn't have to be only assets. Even if you have kids, remember your kids might, God forbid, you pass on. They have said when they're still minors, you'd want to have a guardian appointed, so you can have a will. Now, I think when the moment you have property, and also the moment now you have children, dependents, you have children, and you'd want now to be in control of who is going to be the guardian of your children, so that you don't leave the fate to court. Yes.
Do some people also write how the instructions of how their funeral should be and all that? Is it also included in the will?
Yes, it's included in the will. Like even someone like Nicholas Biwott, he even allocated some funds for the maintenance of his grave.
Wow.
Even the one for Ogola.
Oh,
I think he had said for him he wanted to be, there's instructions he gave.
There's instructions given.
Yes, that's even the benefits of now a will. You'll state how you'd want to be. That's even one of the things that is included in the will, because you also write how you'd want to, like your funeral to be undertaken. There's one I know, they said they want people to wear white. And they didn't want it to go past 12, people should go back to work. It's a person who really loved. So you can have that control. But now the problem is, they normally say a dead body doesn't have rights under the law.
Yeah.
So like if people don't, now that will be now it will just be, you'll be depending now on the people you trust to do what you stated.
What is instructed. So are there instances where even before the passing, someone can actually come and protest and say, you had written this on your will, let's say it's some funeral instructions, but then we as a family, we feel we can't really do that. Can that be in a court dispute?
Yeah, but no, they have said a dead body, when a person has already passed on.
No, like before they actually pass.
No one can, you know, the will, it's you who has the power at that time. No one can, like you give the instruction of how you want your property. Remember, you're not dealing with anyone's, it's never you're writing a will, you're working with your money, your assets. So a third party cannot have, you know, right now, if maybe you want for you, from your estate, the money, your own money, you want to be buried in a certain way. You know, the other party can't have control. You're not using their money, you're not using their resources, it's your resources that you're using. Yeah. So during when the person is still alive, there's no way, because now that person even is there to state exactly what they want. The problem comes in when this person has already passed on, now when executing the will. But now they have said like the property, like now for Nicholas Biwott, the way for him, he said you want it to be maintained. If for instance they don't actually do it, there's nothing that much that can happen. Yes, because now it's the property, like when you're passed on, you're no longer, like you don't have rights.
Right.
Yes.
Now for the executor, what should I need to know when I'm selecting an executor?
Yes, so you'll have to look for someone you trust. Because remember, even though you're going to apply for grants of probate, it's just to formalize. But everything that is written in the will it's done the way it is. So the executor should be someone first, even who is of sound mind, a person you trust, whom you know will be able to execute whatever you have written in your will. Most people by there, they normally choose maybe a lawyer, because it has to be like an independent party to execute your property. So that's why you find when someone has passed on, the entire family comes to then now they read out what the deceased wanted for the property. So, but the executor should be, that's now the thing, that's the most important thing why you even write a will, because you choose a person you trust. It has to be a person you trust, because you want that person to execute exactly what you have written. Even for instance, now the burial, because someone might say, I want to be buried standing.
Oh,
like,
yes.
Maybe, and there's the reasons why you have written that. So now you want someone who will actually honor what you want.
So is there communication between the beneficiaries and the executor, even before this will is well drafted? And actually all parties, at what amount of say does the beneficiary have when it comes to what is on the will?
Nothing. I think it normally comes in after now the person has. Most people even do. You may find even like your father has a will, but you don't know. Has a will, but you don't know about it. So it's after now that you don't know, or maybe you know he has a will, but you don't know the contents of the will. Like as a testator, the one drafting the will, you're not obligated. You may decide to tell like your family, your children, I'm going to do this and this, so they might be aware. But you're not obligated for them to chip in. Okay. It's not, because it's you. Basically, it's your property. It's your. It's everything is yours. So you unless you just want them to chip in, but you're not obligated to ask for their opinions.
So it would be just a personal, view on someone's own volition to say, well, this is how the will looks like. As a beneficiary, what do you think? And all that.
Yeah, it's just because maybe your father may decide to call all of you and be like, I'm doing this and this, but they're not obligated. As a testator, you have all the control, and that's the point of a will. At least you'll have control of deciding, because sometimes when you say the disadvantage of not doing a will, you may find it will be you leave it on the fate of the court, mm-hmm. and court looks at immediate family, and maybe for you there is a property that maybe maybe son X will not take care of that property. Yeah. It may dispose of immediately. So in a will, at least you have an opportunity of making sure your assets are distributed to how you would want for it. Because I normally say it's something you worked hard on. Oh, yes. That's why it's something you have to consider. Like it's something like even though you have passed on, at least have control of how you are. Like you've seen these very big families, there have been disputes. Like these big families, they're the ones that get to the media. The ones who have wealth, but there's no will that was written. So they spend years and years in court disputes. Because of lack, there was no will that was drafted. So it makes things even harder. Even it makes it hard for your dependents or your family when you've passed on. Because now you leave them just battling.
Disputes and disputes.
Yeah, in and out there in court. And these cases take, because someone files an objection. Someone files an application objecting. So it takes a lot of time in court.
Before getting to the gaps, and it's a question that a lot of people ask there. If you have in a polygamous marriage and the couple of families that you have, let's say it's a man, can you have a number of wills, or does it have to be only one and you list every single thing down, all your beneficiaries down, or can you have let's say 2 or maybe even 3 wills and you say this is going to be splitted?
No, you can only have one will, and the moment you have another will, you have to revoke the other one.
Okay.
For instance, you have said maybe someone wrote a will 20 years ago. The moment you write another will, now maybe in 2024 you want to write another will, you have to state in that will that you have already revoked the other will, the one you wrote 20 years ago. Yes, because the moment there are 2 wills, it will be invalidated.
All right.
Yeah, it has to be one will.
Are there any gaps? Are there any gaps you feel like are there any gaps according to you in the Succession Act?
Yeah, I feel, because even the part where, like, if the will is invalidated, the Act only focuses on immediate family. it has to be immediate family. It focuses on immediate family. But sometimes we find this person who passed on had adopted some children, had some children home that they were taking care of. Yeah. So now that becomes, I feel that is a gap that it can be solved, because now you see that this person, these people who are dependent on this deceased person will not benefit from it. But anyway, someone can argue it has been solved by ensuring you write a will. But now sometimes circumstances can happen, or maybe even your will can be invalidated. Yes, I think that's one of the gap I feel it's there when it comes to will. And I think it can be expounded on the issue of, for instance, like now the oral will. I think it has, for the oral will, I think they can, the one you're talking about, the 3-month thing, it can be considered. For some people might argue it's unfair.
Oh, yes. I included.
Yeah, someone can argue that it's unfair, but I think that's one of the other gaps that I see when it comes to drafting of wills. And then the other thing now, but that one doesn't involve the Law of Succession Act, but it's just the lack of knowledge people have out there in regards to wills.
Oh yes, I mean, even after listening to the ladies and gentlemen from Taita Taveta and what they have to say, and that really takes me to my next question. What should people out there know when it comes to, and mostly particularly even for the ladies, what should they really know when it comes to drafting a will?
Yeah, so
both orally as well as written.
Yeah, so the first thing, of course, you don't want your will to be invalidated, so you must know the factors. Like when writing the will, make sure at least you're of sound mind. Like for instance, if you write a will, if maybe you are undergoing depression, when the moment medical documents are brought in, that you wrote this will and you're not of sound mind. So make sure, and then another thing you have to make sure is don't discriminate in your will. But I would advise but not some might be, for someone find it biased, get a lawyer.
Okay.
Get a lawyer to help you writing the will, so the lawyer can ensure that. So that at least, because the lawyer will ensure that you have all your assets listed, you have all your beneficiaries, the name of your beneficiaries, and also the beneficiaries also you have, because family members have similar names. So they normally say that you have to state all their names, so that at least they know that, especially I think it's the Kikuyu culture where you are named after, I think, your father, you get exactly the name of so at least you have to be very specific in your will, while putting your will, listing your assets and the people who are supposed to benefit from it, and then make sure it's well attested to, the witnesses, the executor, and make sure if you're updating it, and if you write another will, you revoke the other one automatically. So that it becomes, this is my last will and testament. That's why when you write the statement, this is my last will and testament. Yes.
Someone would ask for the property. You have listed, let's say, 5 properties. One of them is contested in the court, or maybe has an ongoing dispute. Should you also write that?
No, but normally, if let's say that property has an issue, it doesn't invalidate the will. So everything else will stay as it is. Then that one, now it will now, maybe if it has an issue in court, it will be solved. Then after it's solved, now it will still be effected now as per the will. Let's say if that property was going to son X. Yeah, it doesn't, if there's an issue, it doesn't invalidate the entire will. Yeah, because we find some people, the common one is maybe that property doesn't have a title deed. Or yet, like the property belongs to the deceased, but it doesn't have a title deed yet. So that will not invalidate the will. Yes.
Right. Your final thoughts as we also take a short break and wrap up this conversation.
So I think what I would advise people is consider having a will for you, so that at least a will is basically a control. You can have control over your assets. Even for people, you don't have to be rich, wealthy. People assume it's for the wealthy, because now someone is like, I don't have property. But even if you have children, it will give you control on how your kids will be taken care of. So that at least you can appoint guardians that you trust. You don't leave it to the masses, maybe of your relatives or court, for it to be determined. So my advice is people should consider writing wills, and you can seek advice from your lawyer on the procedures of writing the will.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Ruth Chanui, an advocate of the High Court. That has been the legal tips that you need to know. You've written down all those wise nuggets of wisdom just to understand how do you draft a will. And that is why we put a pause on this conversation. It continues on our digital platforms. Do you know what you need to have when it comes to drafting a will on the same? We're taking a short break. Remember, giving you live coverage on the official unveiling of the Bunge Towers. We'll be giving you all that in a few. Stick around right here at Morning Cafe.
My name is Dr. George Washuri. I am here to present to you a wonderful place you can build a retirement home. Where else other than Ocean View Ridge, Vipingo by Optiven? This property is well manicured. We have a perimeter wall. We are doing a swimming pool. We just concluded a beautiful entry gate. Only 2 miles to the ocean. Do you want to retire in the coastal region? Call this number 0790 300 300. The best property ever.
Nimesoma na tatizo kweli, nimesoma nikihangaika zaidi, mamangu akiteseka, nikirudishwa nyumbani kwa karo.
It is my hope that this committee will find it worthy to approve me.
Katika mahali ulipoketi siku hii ya leo, unaweza kusema umechapa kazi?
Tena sana.
Alhamisi hii saa 1:30 katika Mfahamu Kiongozi litakuwa nikikupa story na historia yake Waziri Penina Malonza. Usikose.
Did you know that a small piece of duct tape can be used to remove a splinter? Applying the tape over the splinter, pressing it down, and then pulling it off can help pull out the splinter easily. Get ready for a whirlwind of fun, where imagination knows no bounds.
I school at the most intelligent school in this world. That is why I go to school.
Adventure awaits as we dive into enchanted tales and explore far-off lands.
Since the sage and his wife did not have any children, they decided to keep the mouse as their child.
Let us also stir up some deliciousness.
Ensure that the butter, this is what we call butter, ensure that it's smooth enough.
And feel the rhythm. Our musical adventures groove to catchy tunes. Sing along, dance, and let your inner rockstar shine. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. on Kids on the Block, where playtime meets learning and friendships bloom.
Right, karibu sana. This is Morning Cafe News to Stanley Nyeringita, and the whole maybe it's just planning a run from Watamu to Busia, more than about 1,000 kilometers. 1,400 kilometers is what I'm being told. But I do have the right plans for this conversation that will be telling us how all this will be done. Mutheu Kasanga, as well as James Mora, they'll be telling us more about where they come from and what they actually do. I can see they were wearing the very proud T-shirt of Rotary. Mutheu, a very good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you?
Minko Salama.
Good
tell
to be
us.
here.
Yes. Tell us, who is Mutheu Kasanga?
Mutheu Kasanga is a Rotarian, and she's a Rotarian with the Rotary Club of Athi River. The Rotary Club of Athi River is part of the network of clubs that become Rotary in our district, which comprises Kenya, South Sudan, Ethiopia, and Eritrea. And one of the things that Rotarians, of course, are very passionate about is working within their communities to improve livelihoods. This year our theme is to bring hope to the world, our global theme in Rotary the world over. And our signature project as the Rotary Club of Athi River is anchored around climate change. And one of the things that many people don't know is that, everybody now knows that the president wants us to plant 15 billion trees in 10 years. And it might look like a tall order, but rallying around climate change is what the world and the planet needs right now. And as we are, right now we're experiencing something very different, especially in our neck of the woods. We're in Lower Eastern, we're in Machakos County. And the Lower Eastern counties are in the semi-arid areas. for once we have too much water, we don't know what to do or how to behave, or what, you know, short of just taking out our mobile phones and going in shock. There's, you know, we don't know what to do. We have never had this much water. And this is what everybody is discussing about climate change. It might not have rained necessarily in Machakos County. It rained in Ngong, in the Nairobi Game Park. It rained elsewhere. And because there's a river system that comes our way, that has burst its banks. So as we discuss climate change, these are some of the things that, you know, in the immediate nature of what is happening right now, this rain season, remind us that this is real, that climate change is real. So for us in our, you know, in looking at what the planet and, you know, the global discussion, our country discussion, planting trees, Rotary has always had a climate agenda.
Okay.
We looked at, you know, how is it that we are planting trees and we are not seeing the impact? Is it that we are using too much firewood? And because we work with schools, we go in and discover that a typical school of 1,500 that uses firewood uses 50 acres of firewood a year.
50 acres of
firewood a year. We've got school feeding programs. We've got all these programs that we are running to keep kids in school. The net effect of that in a typical school of 1,500 is that they're using 50 acres of firewood. He will tell you from Narok. He comes from Narok.
And now speak of which, because I wanted us to have now the introductions.
Yes.
Before now we
go
dive
into the meat.
Yes.
I was talking about who Modeu is.
Yes.
I am now
and roughly as a Rotary.
There cheering education and wanting a fair chance for education. I've worked in the education space all my life. I'm a teacher by training. And you know, the education space is something I'm very passionate about, and just increasing opportunity for every child and making sure that our schools are sustainable.
Right. How about you, Maura?
For me, I'm an extreme endurance athlete. By that I mean doing the normal sports that we know, but now going beyond. So this means like running more than 42 kilometers. You know, we're used to doing 42 kilometers, so doing more than that, I mean maybe hundreds of kilometers, cycling for thousands of kilometers, swimming for hundreds of kilometers. So that's what I mean by extreme endurance athletes. But on top of that, I'm the Kenya National Duathlon Champion, and I'm a full-time duathlete and triathlete. And I'm really passionate about making this world a better place, and I love the environment so much.
Right. And because she had already started with the conversation on how the water catchment areas and even matters, you know, education, and because you largely find that even children above, or rather under 18, they largely spend, let's say, 3/4 of their time, even in a year, even in schools. How much of a big deal is this, you know, event that, I mean, you guys are really planning? How much of a big deal is it even for you?
First of all, I can relate to this because back in school, I went through Siena Boarding Primary School. It's deep in the Masai Mara. And I remember every day in the evening, we used to go out to fetch firewood. Deep, Siena Boarding is in the middle of the Mara. So we used to go fetch firewood deep in the Mara, and I can totally remember us going with, you know, the machetes, cutting down the trees and all that. So I can totally relate. So when I came to learn about now the bigger thing, schools consuming more than 300,000 hectares of forest in Kenya, that really touched me. And so I said, why can't I use my talent to deploy to the world and bring in a solution? So that's how we came to partner with the Rotary Club of Athi River. Yeah.
And now, before we actually get into this, the run, you know, the main event in this, just understanding, because I mean, you tell us schools would really use a huge percentage, a huge acres on the forest cover. But do these communities really understand what he's talking about? Do they understand what they're doing around, even for the climate?
I think, you know, food is a basic need, and families and everybody around communities, we rally around food because that's what makes us move from day to day. So as we are dealing with a very basic need, sometimes it is difficult to you know, you can't tell people it's illegal to cut a tree. they need to eat. They need to prepare food. So we need to find ways of making that basic need achievable while we are trying to achieve this bigger global need to save our environment, to increase tree cover, to regulate our climates better. So it's as simple as that, actually, that food is a basic need. And therefore, we must make it. It is up to us to put on the thinking hat to make sure that we are not also hurting ourselves as we seek for food.
And also seek for alternatives.
Correct.
Maura, what kind of alternatives were there, I mean, even growing up around the Masai, Mara Reserve, and even for the community around you, or mama wakienda pale kutafuta kuni and everything, what kind of alternatives have you seen being used as you grew up?
Back then, we didn't have any alternatives because, I can't remember us having solar in our schools. Instead, we used to have just firewood all through. You can remember, the boilers in schools? So that's what you used throughout. So, hakuna alternative, it's mamas go to the forest, cut firewood, kids. By the way, most of our day scholars in the morning used to come in the morning carrying firewood. Even when you go to Narok right now, even I believe most of these places, Garissa, where you find kids going to school in the morning carrying firewood.
Is it lack of knowledge or lack of now these alternatives that they have?
I believe we're doing this event trying to bring in the solution, but I think it's more about ignorance, one, because they think that, miti tu, moja, it can't do so much. But you realize that at the end of the day, kettles get swept away by floods because of cutting down trees. So I think it's because, one, I can greatly say it's somehow ignorance kidogo. Yeah.
And now, something that we have established the problem here on the table. And again, as he says, this event really trying to bring in the solutions from Watamu all the way to Busia. This are 4,000 plus kilometers. First of all, why Watamu to Busia?
Rotarians this week are gathering for their annual conference, which is in Watamu, our district, the 4 countries.
Okay.
So we are gathered there.
Okay.
So for us as Rotarians, it's a good space for us to have, for us as Rotary Club of Athi River, we are 40 very passionate individuals who comprise the membership of the club. All of them from this one area of, Machakos County. We see this problem because Athi River is an urban area. There are no forests. In fact, in the entire sub-county, there's no gazetted forest. So firewood has to come from somewhere else.
From somewhere else.
This becomes a commercial endeavor for schools. Schools, they unlike in rural areas where you're told come with firewood, kids in Athi River are not told to come with firewood. From where? It's a town. It's a town. Yeah? So it's a real problem. It just is a problem. And schools have coped however they cope. Parents have to raise the money for firewood that is brought in by lorries from somewhere. Nobody knows that somewhere. However it is got, that is the person with the tender to supply fire. And imagine how we are becoming rapidly urbanized because of devolution. Look at all the schools in urban areas. Where do they get firewood? Nobody ever asks this, there's just food at lunchtime.
Oh, yes.
Yeah? For schools that have a feeding program, there's porridge at 10. That's it. Nobody asks.
And firewood was used?
Yes, firewood was used. This is a cost to parents. BOMs, the boards, the parents, PTAs raise the money that goes to these things. So even as we have these discussions of whether school, is it possible to have free education in Kenya? These are some of the things that come into play.
You were a member of the presidential working reforms.
Yes.
Were these things on the table?
No, these are what we call the back-end realities. Like when people say education must be free, then you are like, okay, you want your kids to eat, how is it supposed to be free?
Okay.
You get? So what the Rotary Club of Athi River thought through when they started engaging with this, and we've been working on this for over a year, we've been talking with him. We met him last year when he did another run from Kisumu to Mombasa on something else. We happened to meet him where we usually meet, and we're like, you're doing what again? Then he tells us one time, I've even cycled from, Nairobi to India. And we are like, what? Why did you do that? I was going there for a competition. You listen to his story, you're like, this is somebody we want to affiliate with.
Were you doing this initially for a cause or just for the whole passion? Like I just wake up in the morning. I love running, by the way. I do love running.
Oh,
for long distance.
Join us when we come to Nairobi. Come, bring in your friends and let's join him.
At Watamu, I just have an excuse to be in Watamu.
Fantastic.
Because I definitely love running. Long distance, just challenging myself, go past 20 kilometers. So for you, when you're starting, was it a course that you were pursuing, or because around people, you saw people around me are running, it's a thing to do, so let me also run?
I think for me, I got bored with medals because I was very active in competitions. Like I've told you. So at the end of the day, you go home and you look at your medals and you're like, just boring stuff. But doing something for people, doing something for the next generation, that is what matters to me most. That is what moves me. That is what will make me run for hours without stopping, knowing that there's a kid somewhere who needs an LPG system installed in their schools. That is what will move me. That is what will make me run from Watamu to Busia, just to make sure that kids in Kenya have got LPG systems installed in the schools.
So all this conversation began last year, the whole inception of from Watamu to Busia.
To look at this particular problem, how do we amplify it so that we can gain, we can look for people to help us move from school to school.
So have you...
So first we thought, okay guys, we need to tell people this is a problem. We're in Lower Eastern, we don't have enough rainfall most times. I mean, last year when we started thinking about this project, we were going through a drought. Yeah? Animals in Kajiado County were dying, and it hasn't changed. The poverty index in Kajiado County and the livestock keeping counties just plummeted. We are still feeling the effects, even though there's rain. Animals take a lot longer to recover, to build up a herd, that sort of thing. So we were thinking through a bigger problem, and we were saying, okay, what is it that we can do? Can we get James to help us shout out about this problem?
Okay.
Can we use this to talk about this issue where schools are using 50 acres of forest per year? One school, 50 acres.
That's a lot.
Just count secondary schools alone, they are 11 public. I'm not even going into the private. They're about 11,000. There are 33,000 primary schools in Kenya, public alone. And then now count the acreage.
So first of all, creating awareness in the schools, and then now...
Yes, because you see, for a project, there's a process. The Ministry of Education works with a process. You have to get approvals, whatnot. Parents have to agree to transfer this cost of firewood to gas. You get to you refill a gas. Yeah. And then we are proposing LPG gas as the immediate solution. We are aware there are some schools, smaller schools, that are able to use biogas systems, but the big schools simply cannot use some of those technologies. They are labor intensive, and the volume of food they have to cook, they need high pressure. The needs of the school come, if you're feeding 2,000 students, 10 o'clock is 10 o'clock. You can't have a delay because who fell sick and they didn't do I don't know what manure pit. You need supply, constant supply. And where our education system is going, looking at our population growth, and you guys, you know how our schools are, bursting at the seams. We need to have solutions that work. And as long as a school is already climate aware, for instance, by using energy saving GOs, those big boilers that are insulated so that they use less firewood, LPG gas is a viable solution for them.
However, because from Watamu all the way to Busia, you'd be crisscrossing a number of counties in between.
Yes.
And over the year, I believe, from Watamu, you've had a conversation with schools on the path of this event that you really want to do.
We are using our network of Rotary clubs, which already have quite a good number of programs within schools, now to talk to we use our network to talk to schools. Of course, once we now take off, we are hoping, we can have a conversation with the Ministry of Education because they have been brilliant at giving us permissions to do things in schools. For instance, in Kilifi, just this week, there's going to be an ICT lab launched in a school in Kilifi by the governor and the Rotary clubs that have been working on those things. The linkages between Rotary and government are tight. already.
Okay.
So we just saw another problem where we, people who live within the communities these schools exist, can come together and pitch in and improve, because this is an improvement of the quality. Remember, when one small input has a bigger, picture output on the other end. Yes. So when you look at schools that kids are told come with firewood, then they are not being told to come with firewood. Look at the time saved. Look at, and look at now the people who have to work in those environments as well. The smoke,
and also the risk.
And the risk, we find a lot of kitchen workers in schools have eye problems, have lung problems. And these are things nobody ever talks about. The health sectors can tell you that this is a real issue.
So for someone watching us this morning and they're hearing us talk about this run from Watamu all the way to Busia, more than 4,000 kilometers, they're probably interested, let's in joining, but then they're wondering, when is the date? When is this happening? How is it going to be? Wara, could you tell us how things will be from Watamu all the way? Is it continuous running? How is all this planned?
We've staged it, so we're having different stages. For example, we're starting from Watamu to Kilifi, then down to... So we have different stages.
Okay.
Then after every 2 or 3 days of running, we have a break, a rest. So we partner with the club in that particular area. So we have different activities they're going to do. Then what else? What else do you ask?
Okay, so for someone who's probably interested in joining.
We have a payment number, by the way.
Okay.
Put it through.
Okay.
So you can jump in, come run with us. You can support us in terms of sponsoring a kilometer. We have that. I think a kilometer goes for about 2,000 bob. You can come do the entire stretch with us. You can come jump in. You can share the story, because this is a really big thing. I believe we should make it go viral, because we all need the forests. Without the forests, then I think we are missing something in terms of climate conservation. So we start with the forests first. So everybody who loves their future and who loves their kids should jump in.
Oh, yes. And the reason I was asking that, because it's the same from Watamu to Busia, there are different counties in between.
Yes.
And each county has their own unique kind of challenges.
Yes.
Let's say if it's schools, the kind of schools in Busia, they have their own unique.
Correct.
It was the same as you're saying in Athi River. You'd probably be wondering, schools set up there, why are we bringing in firewood? If you say that, if you bring that conversation in a different school, they resonate to that. So each county has its own. For someone, and even for this whole event, from all the way, all those kilometers, for someone, getting into this, do they really need to understand, all these kind of factors, that the kind of trees that I'll be planting somewhere in between from this county A all the way to Busia, and just crisscrossing all this. This is a different kind of tree that I'm planting here because it works for this county as well as the next county.
I think I'll have to pass that.
Yes. Yeah, and that is why we are working with Rotary clubs.
Okay.
Because they are in different locations.
And they understand that place better.
Oh, correct.
Yeah.
100%. What works in urban areas may not work in rural areas. What works in Kilifi County might not even work in Mombasa County, may not work in Voi, may not work in, Makueni County.
Yeah.
So all these needs are localized because we are interacting with the local clubs. We are hoping because this is a long-term project, that number one, we can, come out also with a success story in every county that we run through, and say, what, we did this many trees here. Or, what, this school established a tree nursery that then supplied that other school that has more land, that has, because there are urban schools without a space to even do things. I am speaking from my experience in Athi River, where urban schools tend to be, bigger population-wise, and have no land to barely even think of, establishing anything, impactful, if you see what I mean. Anything they do will be just a bit like a demonstration. We have planted trees along our fence. We want you people out there to also try and plant trees along your fence. Because this is a discussion in urban areas we must have, that wherever you live, plant a tree. Plant a tree. Two. Let the movement start. And then sort of light the fire around the issues around institutions. Education institutions, hospitals in rural areas use firewood. Prisons tend to use firewood. these institutions become the biggest consumers of our forest. Once it is ash, once it is burned, that tree is done. It is ash, inatupwa.
Right.
We need to have that discussion.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, light that fire of that discussion. Using educational institutions as the place with the highest impact. Let us work together.
And speak of even continuing to have this conversation, we have about 3 minutes to wrap it up.
Okay.
And before I get your final thoughts, Amori, you can also tell us now what next. Let's say someone, they really wanted to jump into this event,
yes,
and be part of it. But then what's the, you really touched well on even the future of past this
yes,
event. But now what next after this, according to you?
I think it's just to start the run, because you're already ready. And also to tag in now everybody else as we do the run.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I think I'm ready set, everything mentally, because that's where we start from. You've told me you're a runner anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm set and I'm ready, and I'm looking forward to see Kenyans and the whole world come in to support this.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, it's not an easy thing.
Oh, yeah.
You've told me you run, so people can try do at least 40 or 50 kilometers, try push yourself, and you'll get to know what you're doing. So come in and, match the effort that you're putting in.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Even as you give us your final thoughts, also give us, let's say, the dates that this is happening, and the people number and all that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're flagging off on the 26th
yeah.
in Watamu, Kilifi Primary School.
Yeah, Kilifi Primary School.
That's on Friday.
That's on
That's
Friday.
on Friday.
So Karibuni, we thank the governor of the district governor of Rotary for accepting us to use the district conference to flag off James. And we've got quite a few runners already who have pledged to run with you the entire way.
Yep.
So we welcome anybody who is passionate about climate change, who is an athlete, who is passionate about running. Join us in the different legs. We already have Machakos County, for instance, the Environment Ministry, the County Ministry, already plugged in and very ambitious. They want to meet him at the Techno City.
And do the run with us.
And run with him and deliver him to Nairobi County.
So you can actually, if I can't really come to Watamu, can I meet you guys katikati mahali?
Wherever is
We're going to share the stages with you.
Yes.
We have about 15 stages.
We have 15
So you can choose. You can choose whether you want to do Salama to the river. That would be a big stage, but that's the Queen stage. You can choose to do Voi to Mtituande. You can choose to do, just choose which stage. I'll share the stages with you.
Right.
We are hoping the expressway will allow us to run with him all the way until the rest stop, because it's only 17 kilometers.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal, so that we can just pull in as many people as we can to just jump in on this discussion. We are looking for support. This is a big endeavor. We are already at what? 30 clubs, 20, nearly, and we are detouring. So when you look at our route from Kilifi to Mombasa, Mombasa to Nairobi, Nairobi to Nakuru, Nakuru backwards to Narok, like that, and then back again, like that, Kisumu,
Busia.
Because of the clubs. That is the impact that James is sharing with us. His extreme athletics allowed us to use a map drawn by Rotary clubs, and he just said, oh yeah, I can do that. Oh yeah, I can do that. And he never said no.
So basically, even for someone, they're really interested at this point, they can go to Rotary Club at the river and they'll get most of these details there.
Yes. So we're looking for companies to support us. We have one project that we are hoping to showcase, which has been funded by our district in the River Primary School, which is an urban primary school.
Right.
And they have a kitchen, and we are converting that to gas. And we thank the school and its management and its board and the Ministry of Education for allowing us to do this for them, so that we can show them the difference, what it means for a school. And the school is happy to do this. So please join us. We need your support. We need support in kind. We need support to help raise the money for these schools. And we are able to do this. We Rotarians are ambitious, and we are dedicated to saving our country, and dedicated to ensuring that the president hits his goal of 15 billion by also protecting the tree cover we currently have. We have to save what we have, even as we plant more.
Right.
Our pay bill is, in the Rotary Club of Athi River, 00222222, in INM Bank, 247. I think.
547. Okay,
Yes.
but then for more details, you can check
Rotary
in.
Club, we are in all the social medias and we keep sharing the updates.
Oh yes, flagging off on the 26th, that's on Friday.
Yes.
So stick around for that in case you feel like I won't really be able to, attend all this. We'll be giving you about details right here at TV47, courtesy of maybe it's as well. So Sujali. But then again, if you're around Nairobi in Unaona, I can actually make it. You've been told the stages, you can head on and be part of it. I'll try to be part of it. So tuonane watamu. Thank you very much. I'm Matheo Kasanga, Director at Lukanya Schools, as well as James Maura. And there's actually quite a number of plates for both of you.
Me, I'm president.
Yes, President.
Right now, I am the president of the Rotary Club of Athi River.
Fantastic. As well as an athlete, extreme athlete.
Yes. Thank you for having us.
Asanteni sana.
Yes.
Hopefully, I'll try at 20 kilometers
Yes.
in all of it.
Karibu.
The
Yes.
King Stage.
That's Salama to Athi River.
The
Yes.
King Stage.
Yes.
We're
also having what
yeah. And I have more questions about that particular stage. I hope you also do. Check out the socials at Rotary Club and you'll get your answers there. I'm yours truly, Stanley Jarungita. Till we meet again, goodbye.